Chapter 279. Naraka, Blue Valley Ruins. The Blue Valley tribe's territory that once gave birth to a highly developed civilization had long since lost its former glory. In the vast modern city, most of the buildings were covered by vines and moss. Bloodthirsty beasts roamed the streets. It really felt like a wasteland from a sci-fi movie. In Naraka, the strength of a race was always temporary. No one could guarantee that their race would be able to stand forever in such a harsh environment. Therefore, what they needed to do was to kill and plunder, to strengthen themselves while eliminating all forces that could threaten them. This was the main theme of Naraka. The living environment was worse than any of the major regions in the underworld. Strength was the truth, and it was also the right to speak to the outside world. At this time, on the top floor of an abandoned building, the Silver Dream Eater was shining coldly under the dim sunlight. The wind speed was 12 meters per second from east to west, half speed, and the angle was slanted. After adjusting the angle, Emily's vision instantly reached 1,500 meters away through the sniper scope. In her vision, a silverback gorilla wearing broken armor was tearing its prey apart. The way it ate was very bloody, and blood was splattering everywhere. Silverback Gorilla, Beginner Ghost Commander. Monster details: a mutated creature that was accidentally exposed to the radioactive energy left behind by the Blue Valley tribe. Its body cells are constantly reorganizing and changing the genetic sequence of the silverback demon ape and granting it extremely strong physical defense and strength. Monster status: growth. Body is constantly strengthening, resulting in the need for a large amount of food to replenish the body's consumption. Bang! A gunshot rang out and a bullet flew out of the muzzle. Under the influence of the wind and gravity, it flew in a parabolic trajectory toward the silverback gorilla's head. Bang! The shot hit the silverback gorilla's forehead accurately, causing it to stagger backward and almost fall to the ground. The silverback gorilla that was ambushed immediately roared in anger. It turned its body and scanned its surroundings fiercely. It was the first time Emily had encountered a Ghost Commander-level creature, and she was obviously shocked by its extremely strong defense. Until now, this creature had the strongest defense among all the monsters she had encountered. It was actually unscathed after being shot in the head, a fatal spot. However, Emily's expression did not change. Years of experience in ambushing and assassination had made her very calm. After adjusting the muzzle slightly, the bullet shot out again. Bang! This shot accurately hit the wound on the silverback demonic ape's forehead. Immediately, the wound caved in and the epidermis ruptured. Blood flowed out of the hole. This completely enraged the silverback demon ape. It angrily beat its chest and constantly looked around, looking for the sneak attacker. Just as Emily fired her third shot, the silverback demonic ape suddenly turned its head to look at her, who was 1,500 meters away. Bang! The spear hit the silverback demonic ape's forehead again, and a bloody mist burst out of it. Roar! As the silverback ape roared, it leaped into the air, its left arm clinging onto the eaves of a nearby building. Then, it leaped back and forth between the buildings, quickly approaching Emily's position. Emily did not panic when she realized that she had been discovered. She patted her chest, and the ammunition storage compartment popped out. She reached out and took out 3 of the special blue bullets. She calmly removed the magazine and pressed the 3 special bullets into the bullet slot. Armor-piercing bullet, beginner special bullet. Item details: special ammunition purchased from the shop. Each round costs 20 soul coins. Item effect 1. Level 1 penetration. Target's defense is reduced by about 10%. Maximum value is 100. Item effect 2. Bullet damage increased by 20%. This damage is affected by the weapon. Gotcha. Magazine in position, loaded, aimed, and fired. With a jerk of her shoulder, the bullet burst out of the chamber, leaving behind 2 swirling trails of mist as it flew. Bang! The silverback demonic ape, which had been leaping forward at high speed, could not dodge in time and was shot again. Arg! The silverback demonic ape howled in pain as it fell to the ground. This time, Emily didn't aim for its forehead. Instead, she shot the demonic ape's right eye. As the armor-piercing bullet pierced the demonic ape's eye membrane, it drilled into its brain. Milky white brain matter flowed out of its right eye, causing it to howl in pain and writhe on the ground. Emily was unfazed. She looked through the eyepiece again, looking for a target that could deal effective damage. She was very clear about her own situation. All of her resources had been used to upgrade her weapon. Against such a powerful creature, if she let it get close to her, she believed that she would not be able to withstand a single blow. An effective distance was the condition for her to hunt such a powerful creature. Even without an eye, the silverback demonic ape could still see clearly, so it was still a threat to her. Roar! At that moment, the struggling silverback demonic ape on the ground roared into the sky, the sound waves radiating in all directions. Bang! The armor-piercing bullet shot into the silverback demonic ape's mouth. Arg! This shot was very effective. The silverback demonic ape suddenly lowered its head and began to vomit blood, spitting out half of its tongue that had been cut off by the armor-piercing bullet. There was still one more armor-piercing bullet. Emily's expression became serious. This creature's strong vitality was beyond her imagination. Regular bullets were not effective against the silverback demonic ape, so she had to create an absolute advantage with the last bullet. At that moment they were about 700 meters apart. The silverback demonic ape seemed to have realized the terror of the opponent's long-range ability. It chose to turn its back on Emily, and crazily closed in on her on all fours. Seeing this, Emily removed the magazine and took out the last armor-piercing bullet. She then filled the magazine with a charging bullet and inserted it into the slot again. Click! The bullet was loaded. She raised the gun, aimed and fired. Bang! The shot hit the back of the silverback demonic ape's head, causing it to stagger and almost fall to the ground. The corner of Emily's mouth curled up. She adjusted the muzzle slightly and fired again. Bang! Every bullet accurately hit a wound. After 3 shots, the bullet penetrated the back of the silverback demonic ape's head, causing it to let out another shrill cry. After gauging the distance, Emily quickly unloaded the magazine and pressed the last armor-piercing bullet into the barrel. Dynamic vision activated. The mech's ability was activated, and the silverback demonic ape's trajectory was outlined in Emily's eyes. The last armor-piercing bullet. There was no room for error. Bang! Flames burst out from the muzzle. This shot passed through the wound created by the previous 4 shots, and shot into the silverback demonic ape's brain. It even collided with the armor-piercing bullet that shot into the silverback demonic ape's right eye. The huge impact immediately burst forth in the silverback demonic ape's brain, twisting it into a pile of mush. At that moment, the silverback demonic ape was less than 200 meters away from Emily. If it was given another 5 seconds, it would have the chance to counterattack. Its body crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Server-wide announcement. Player Emily has killed a beginner ghost supreme beast, silverback demonic ape, above level 76. Triggered a special reward, a custom-made weapon. At that moment the 3 servers were in an uproar again. No one had expected that a player would kill a ghost supreme beast in just 7 days after the server's launch. Moreover, it was a kill above level 76. To the veteran players, this was simply a miracle. After all, this was an achievement that even top players like Aogn had never achieved. Forum, Watermelon_Taro. Are snipers this scary? I can understand killing monsters above level. Didn't Aogn kill monsters above level back then? But killing a ghost supreme beast above level 76? Are you kidding me? Horrified emoji. Prince_charming_123. Hell, only snipers can be so willful. The other classes probably wouldn't even know how they died if they used up all their resources to upgrade their weapons. However, the rechargeable mech is the most difficult to operate among all the mechs. Among them, choosing a sniper rifle as the main weapon is the most difficult. This is because shooting requires consideration of various factors such as light, wind speed, rain, and so on. Don't be impulsive and choose it, you'll definitely regret it. Shuali_the_strongest. It used to be said that assassins have the highest explosive power, but it seems to have changed now. I'm shedding tears of a sewer. I'm begging the officials to strengthen it. Assassin_creed. Speaking of which, no one has learned the Prajna scarification yet. If the range of the Prajna scarification is infinite, I can lock onto the sniper god from 1,000 meters away. Wouldn't her headshot be counter-headshot? From this, assassins are the daddy of all classes. Laughing emoji. Crayon_Shinchan replied to assassin_creed. If sorcerers have forbidden spells in the later stages, the nuclear war between the players will start. The game world will be destroyed, and the expansion pack will probably advance to the rebuilding home chapter. Laughing emoji. Demolition Officer Squad Leader. Hypothetical my ass. I said that warriors are invincible in the later stages. I don't care if it's your Prajna or forbidden spells. Even if the world is gone, we'll still exist forever. Laughing emoji. Jason, Europe, looking at the current class data of the Hell server, she definitely stacked all her resources to upgrade her weapon. If she's at the same level, a melee fighter can probably take her down with one slash. Heaven_Beaker, Hell replied to Jason. The problem is that I can't get close to her. Resentment emoji. Jason replied to Heaven_Beaker. Let's put it this way. The Hell server's rechargeable mechs are actually best at long-range attack. The aftermath of a missile might be able to blow her up. If she keeps upgrading her weapon like this. Heaven_Beaker replied to Jason. That makes sense. Eyes glowing. Demolition Officer Squad Leader. I guess only the couple killer can restrain her at this stage. Crayon_Shinchan. Who he the great demon king? I don't know what you guys are arguing about. The ghost commanders that I've dug out could fit into a train. A beginner ghost commander is really not worth my time. I'm not going to talk anymore. Laughing emoji. After 5 days, Emily's performance once again caused a sensation in the forum. Other than marveling at her godly performance, the players were also discussing whether her extreme method of resource allocation was right or wrong. Soon, the players who had chosen the rechargeable mechs began to copy Emily's method and upgraded all their resources to their sniper rifles. They also wanted to try killing monsters that were of a higher level. However, the outcome was undoubtedly tragic. During the process of trying, the rechargeable mechs that used sniper rifles as their main weapon were flooded with negative comments on the official Hell server forum. The Hell server players called them a sewer class of the sewers. After all, a weapon like a sniper rifle was not something that an ordinary person could easily operate. After various attempts, a large number of players gave up on continuing to upgrade their sniper rifles. Instead, they switched to rechargeable hand cannons, submachine guns, and other weapons with low fault tolerance. It could be said that Emily's ability to kill monsters that were of a higher level had become a legend that could not be replicated in the Hell server. At this moment, the Hell server players also realized something. There was no real sewer class. As long as you were good enough, sewers could still become legends and gods. Chapter 280. Even Emily did not expect to receive a hidden reward for killing such a powerful creature. At this moment, the game interface appeared in front of her, followed by a system notification. Please choose the weapon you want to customize. 1 melee weapon, 2 remote weapon. Emily immediately clicked on the second option. Remote weapon creation options. Bow and arrow, concealed weapon, firearm, energy gathering. After several choices, a white sniper rifle template appeared in front of Emily, with many parameters and recommended plans beside it. There was also a text feedback box at the bottom. Emily was very familiar with sniper rifles. She ignored the recommended parameters and began to adjust the shape of the sniper rifle, using her favorite kiss of the black lily as the base to modify it. At this moment, Emily was like a child who had found her favorite toy, not a ruthless killer. While she was adjusting the parameters of the weapon, Tong Gua's forging room in the mansion of the dead in Baiki. Tong Gua was bare-chested, hammering a piece of cold spiritual ore with a hammer in his right hand. "Damn it, are you done? Do you really think you're making a divine weapon?" Tong Gua felt exhausted as he looked at the parameters that were constantly being fed back. This was the first time he had encountered a customer with such a complicated request. If it were other players who came to customize weapons, he would have dismissed them with a simple request. However, he had no choice this time because it was an order from Lu Wu, who told him that he had to make it within a specified time. At first, he thought that it was almost done. However, he did not expect that the parameters of the weapon that his client requested were completely set according to his own ideas. Tong Gua's recommendation was completely ignored. This exhausted Tong Gua as he could only adjust the purity and shape of the spiritual ore bit by bit. Clang! Feeling helpless, Tong Gua turned his grief and anger into strength, venting his resentment on the spiritual ore. After Emily finished adjusting all the parameters of the sniper rifle, Tong Gua finally sped up the forging process. Tong Gua's forging ability was incredible. The spiritual ore that was constantly being hammered began to distort under Tong Gua's control, gradually turning into a black sniper rifle model. After roughly completing the forging process, Tong Gua was ready to throw it into the forging furnace for enchantment. Just then, Emily's feedback came again. "Turn the gun into parts. I need the kind that can be disassembled at any time. It would be best if the parts can be disassembled and assembled into other type." Tong Gua was dumbfounded. Looking at the sniper rifle model that had been formed, he felt like killing someone. Didn't that mean he had to start over? Grief and indignation, endless grief and indignation. "Kid, don't come to the mansion of the dead, or else I, Tong Gua, will let you know what happiness is." However, Tong Gua immediately realized a problem. He did not know anything about firearms at all. How was he going to make the parts? Just when Tong Gua did not know what to do, dozens of blueprints suddenly appeared in his mind, along with Bei Li's voice. "Follow the blueprint. After the enchantment is done, leave the rest to me." Barrel, brake, optical pupil focusing scope, sensor components, laser rangefinder, grip, stock, magazine, barrel, cartridge box, bracket, rifling, trigger, all kinds of high-precision screws, bolt, hammer, firing pin, safety, locking mechanism, recoil spring, hammer, resistance, extractor hook, ejector, magazine. Tong Gua almost doubted his life when he saw the blueprints. Is this a weapon? Not dozens of them? Tong Gua looked at Xiao Tian, who was lying on the bed and scrolling through the forum. His eyes were filled with resentment. "Boss Tong Gua, don't look at me, I don't know how to do it." Xiao Tian seemed to have noticed Tong Gua's resentful stare, so he quickly turned his head and said, "Why don't you learn it? I can teach you. As the saying goes, when you're away from home, you should have a skill." No, no, no. I'm a bit stupid, and I'm not talented enough in forging. I'd better not embarrass you." "I don't care," Tong Gua said bitterly. However, the task had to continue. Tong Gua could only take out a few pieces of cold iron ore from the space, and threw them into the casting furnace. At the same time, he swung the hammer in his hand again. After 2 hours of hammering, all the parts of the weapon were gathered, and Tong Gua collapsed on the ground in exhaustion. "Are you there? Collect." As Tong Gua's voice fell, a ray of light swept across, and all the gun parts on the casting table disappeared. "Well done. You're rewarded with 200 soul coins. Collect." Bei Li's playful voice rang out. Recently, Tong Gua had accumulated a huge debt from playing cards. He could not even afford the wood spirit wine and was worried about where he could get money. The reward of 200 soul coins instantly lifted the spirits of the despondent Tong Gua. After taking away Tong Gua's weapon parts, Bailey adjusted her spectacles in the artifact space with a serious expression. She began to enchant the sniper rifle parts a second time to make its performance more compatible with the mech. At the same time, she optimized the parameters of the weapon set by Emily. After everything was done, a weapon shining with a black metallic luster appeared. Unnamed Level 1 Growth Weapon. Item details. Produced by Tong Gua's Forging Workshop, an epic-level sniper rifle that was enchanted twice by an unknown research expert. It has 32 internal parts, can be disassembled and assembled into a new form of firearm, triggered after level 80. Item level. Epic growth type, can be automatically improved according to the owner's shooting habits. After looking at the weapon with satisfaction, Bailey waved her hand and sent it to Emily's personal channel. Lu Wu, who was standing at the side, took out his little notebook and wrote down Emily's name on it. Lu Wu was elated to have another talented player in the talent level player roster. The reason why Bailey personally took action this time was because her talent had been recognized by both of them. They felt that she was a promising talent. To game notification, your weapon has been delivered to your account, please check. Emily, who was still fantasizing about her custom-made weapon, quickly opened her channel and took out the sniper rifle. Her gaze was immediately attracted by the black outline of a lily on the butt of the rifle. It seemed to be blooming, but it also seemed to be withering. The body of the rifle was surrounded by a black glow, and the black lily was constantly changing along with the flow of the light. It was so beautiful that Emily fell in love with it immediately. Click. She pulled the bolt, and the crisp sound of the mechanism was heard. Good weapon. The feeling reminded her of the kiss of the black lily that she had lost. She then took out the magazine and wanted to reload it to test its power. However, she realized that there was a purple bullet in the magazine, and it was also engraved with a black lily. Black lily, custom-made bullet. Item details. A custom-made bullet that comes with the creation of a weapon. It is a limited item, and cannot be purchased after consumption. Item effects. Damage X3, Level 5 Penetration, 50% Defense Penetration, upper limit of 10,000 points. Note: since the underworld is real, there is a limit to the defense penetration. For example, although the beginner armor-piercing bullet states 10% defense penetration, it only has an upper limit of 200 defense points. For example, a Ghost Emperor has 100,000 defense points after being digitized. It is obviously unrealistic to use a beginner armor-piercing bullet to penetrate 10% defense points, so the upper limit is set. The effect of the bullet gave Emily a fright. What did 3 times the damage mean? Her damage output was already terrifyingly high, and her targets were mainly the head and neck, which was already a critical hit. If it was multiplied by 3 times, and added on the 50% defense penetration, Emily clenched her fist excitedly. With the existence of this bullet, she believed that she could finish off the silverback ape with one shot. However, Emily was a little reluctant to use this bullet that was like a work of art. After some thought, she did not give up on the bullet in the Mechs magazine, but put it in the channel instead. This would be her trump card in the future. Game notification. Please name your custom-made weapon. The appearance of the game notification stunned Emily, and then the corner of her mouth curled up. Kiss of the Black Lily. The naming successful. The weapon has been renamed. Kiss of the Black Lily. After the naming, Emily opened the shop interface and clicked on the weapon forging interface. She then placed the Kiss of the Black Lily on the upgrade column, and placed the Dream Eater on the right side. Confirm to devour the weapon to upgrade? After confirmation, the Dream Eater will turn into spiritual ore points, EXP, and be absorbed by the Kiss of the Black Lily. At the same time, the weapon will be permanently shattered. Confirm. After pressing confirm, the Dream Eater began to disintegrate, turning into countless light spots that surged toward the Kiss of the Black Lily. Bang! The right column turned into a pile of black ash, and the kiss of the black lily glowed, leveling up to level 24. Looking at the kiss of the black lily that had become even more gorgeous, Emily's eyes were filled with excitement. After removing the weapon, Emily began to disassemble it, and then reassemble it. After an hour of disassembling and reassembling, Emily had a rough understanding of the weapon's structure. After reassembling it, she installed the charging bullet, the desire to kill stirring in her heart. It's time to test the effect. At this moment, with Emily as the center, all creatures within a kilometer radius became her targets. Blood spurted from the spear, and he was killed in one shot. At this moment, Emily had turned into the Grim Reaper, delivering the kiss of the black lily to the creatures within her attack range. The most lethal damage was not a sloppy harvest. Emily's effective kill rate shocked even Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes. At this moment, Emily was like a black lily of death that exuded a deadly fragrance, terrifying and chilling. Chapter 281. Baki, the Mansion of the Dead. Compared to the difficult survival mode of the Naraka players, the life of the Baki players had returned to normal after the death of the short-lived His Excellency, Yu Yao. Lu Wu had never thought of recruiting Yu Yao, but Yu Yao was stubborn and rejected Lu Wu's offer. He could no longer return to the land of the 9 luminaries, and the Yu Yao army that followed him had been destroyed. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to him. In his eyes, the players were irreconcilable enemies. There was no way he could surrender, even if it meant death. Although Lu Wu felt sorry for this, he did not show any mercy. This was the law of the underworld. The winner was king. Yu Yao already knew of Lu Wu's existence at that time. Since they could no longer coexist, there was no need for him to continue to exist. After Yu Yao's death, the overall strength of the Baki players skyrocketed again. This time, the annihilation of Yu Yao's army had given the players a special title as a reward. All the players felt extremely satisfied. After their lives were on the right track, the players had a variety of entertainment activities other than killing monsters and leveling up. After the Rock Ghost King and the other bosses became NPCs, Baki was firmly in the hands of the players. Their next step was to declare war on the land of the 9 luminaries. On this day, the players who were in the game suddenly received a game notification. Game Update Notice. The life profession, Apothecary, has been released in this update. Apothecary, Life Profession Introduction. This profession does not conflict with the main profession. After officially becoming an apothecary, you will master the special abilities of this profession. Introduction of the 5 initial abilities of the profession. Frowny Face Apothecary, Beginner. Ability Introduction. Main skill of Apothecary. Accurately control the usage of various spiritual materials. After fusing and refining them, the medicinal effect will be multiplied. Spiritual Material Spiritual Identification, Beginner. Ability Introduction. After mastering this ability, you can identify the specific spiritual energy value in spiritual materials and distinguish the difference between spiritual materials of the same level. After leveling up, you can observe the condition of spiritual plants, lack of water, lack of spiritual energy, excessive nutrition, etc. Spiritual Plant Cultivation, Beginner. Is Spiritual Plant Grafting, Beginner. Is Spiritual Purification, Beginner. As the players clamored for it, the first lifestyle class was officially released. At the same time, in the safe zone of the Mansion of the Dead in Baki, a giant tree-shaped building appeared next to Tong Gua's forging workshop. Monolith Apothecary Association. A description. Apothecary Training Association. All players who are level 80 or above can apply for the profession, apothecary, here. After passing a series of tests, the player can officially become an apothecary and obtain the apothecary interface. Applications for the apothecary profession change will be opened periodically. Building functions. Apothecary profession change, apothecary furnace purchase, apothecary advancement building owner. Rock, Ghost King Intermediate NPC. The appearance of an alchemist immediately attracted the attention of a large number of players. This was especially true for players who did not like fighting and preferred to spend their days leisurely gardening. The crowd surged towards the Boulder Alchemy Association. However, becoming an alchemist wasn't as easy as players thought. Even in the underworld, there were very few people who could become an apothecary. After all, this wasn't a game. Only players with true talent in this area could walk on this path and continue walking it for a long time. In fact, it would be very simple to refine potions according to the preset template. Even the measuring device could be set up. Players only needed to gather enough materials and click Start to easily refine the potions. However, if they were to refine potions according to the preset template, the players would be stuck in a dead end. The consequence of relying too much on the template was that they would no longer have the ability to innovate in the future. Since Lu Wu planned to turn the army of players into a truly talented race, he naturally had to make some trade-offs in this aspect. Therefore, Lu Wu gave up on using the template to refine potions. Instead, he chose to let the players practice by themselves. He only provided convenience in terms of skills and knowledge so that the players could adjust the stability of the fusion of spiritual materials. Under such harsh conditions, Lu Wu believed that a batch of true apothecary masters would emerge among the players in the future. By then, they would have the ability to create new prescriptions by relying on their own effort. They would also be able to improve and optimize many of the existing prescriptions. Short-sighted choosing to refine potions according to the template would only curb the creativity of the players. Therefore, Lu Wu gave up decisively. Since Lu Wu had always been full of expectations for the players, he would never limit the upper limit of the players. At this moment, the players received the trial quest notification from Lu Wu. Since the apothecary profession is a life profession that is extremely difficult to operate, the quota for the apothecary profession is limited to 10,000. Do you want to participate in the apothecary profession change trial? Seeing that there were only 10,000 quotas, the players suddenly complained. They all complained that the officials were going to mistreat the weak them again. In the face of such a situation, Lu Wu still gave the players a clear reply on the forum. He indicated that this was only the first trial and that there would be more quotas in the future. At the same time, he also pointed out the difficulty of operating the apothecary profession. Although they complained, the players were still full of expectations for this new profession. However, there was still something else that left the players dumbfounded. All the players who clicked to confirm their participation in the apothecary profession change trial immediately received 3 books that were as thick as dictionaries from the system. Identification of medicinal ingredients, complete. Beginner Apothecary Operating Guide, simplified. A How to Refine Potions with the Highest Efficiency, simplified. At the same time, there was also a game notification frowny face. The apothecary profession change trial will be held in 3 days. Please read these 3 books as it will be of decisive help to the outcome of the trial. Forum, Crayon_Shinchan. Oh my god! I'm just playing a game and they want me to endorse books. I'm really impressed by the developers of Battle Online. They're so awesome. Kneeling emoji. Shirley_the_strongest. I want to kill someone. I didn't expect that I, who had left the sea of books, would one day have to hold these 3 thick books and memorize them just to play a game. Bastard developers, eat my spear, bleeding knife. JPG, roasting_jade_hair_ while _hugging_chung. I can say that I really don't like studying, but I want to change my profession to be an apothecary. What should I do? Crying emoji, watermelon_taro. I, the weakest chicken in this forum, finally has a chance to rise. A noble child comes from a poor family. I'm going to stick my neck out. It's just 3 books, I'll accept this challenge. Bright eyes emoji, Dumbledore. Bastard, how dare you ask me to endorse books? Why don't you set a condition that only doctoral students have the chance to change their profession? Slamming table emoji. Crayon_Shinchan replied to Dumbledore, Shut up. Don't let the officials see this, or else I'm afraid they'll do it. Laughing emoji. Assassin_Creed. Player, even if I starve to death and have no games to play, I won't endorse books. Flustered and exasperated emoji. Major guilds, recruiting apothecary players. The salary is extremely high and the benefits are excellent. Player, damn, smells good. Potash_calcium_sodium_magnesium_aluminium. As a doctoral student majoring in chemistry, I'm determined to change my profession. Draw your sword, scumbags. Crazy provocative eyes emoji. Frankenstein_monster. Damn, I really like this. Can I continue to experiment crazily in the game? After reading the official announcement that the synthesis of potions was full of uncertainties, and that the God-tier potions could even help people level up by 100 levels, I was beyond excited. I'm going to stay up late to memorize books for the next 3 days. I'm going to change my profession, I said. Even Jesus can't hold me back. After the announcement, the players were both happy and worried. Those who didn't like to learn almost cried themselves to death. Therefore, the players began to coax and pester people, acting cute and coquettish in the forum, hoping that the officials would modify the content of the trial. Obviously, it was impossible for their idea to be realized. This time, Lu Wu didn't even reply to them. The commotion among the players gradually subsided amid the complaint. One of the players used a very incisive sentence to summarize the content of the apothecary trial this time. Ever since I was young, my parents told me to study more. Only then can I stand out. I didn't think much of it. Until one day, I became addicted to a game called Battle Online. Only then did I realize that my parents didn't lie to me. Chapter 282. On the second day after the apothecary trial was released, a strange scene appeared in the mansion of the dead. The players were holding thick books in their hands and reading them seriously with their heads down. They looked like they were studying hard and making progress every day. Even the way they communicated with each other had changed. Passerby A. Brother, where are we going to level up today? Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. Passerby A. Brother, I found an island in the void ocean today. There might be treasures on it. Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. Passerby A. Brother, we haven't farmed the dungeon today. It's time to go. Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. What was even more ridiculous was that there was a group of players who hated studying during their school days. However, in order to advance to the apothecary class, they all became obedient children who loved to study. They would often gather together to discuss the contents of apothecary book. According to a certain player, if he had been as hard-working as he was now when he was studying, he might have been admitted to Tsinghua University. Faced with the uncompromising officials, the players had no choice but to study hard. After all, there were no shortcuts this time. The only way to become an apothecary was to study hard. Because of this, a large number of players gave up their daily activities such as fighting monsters, farming spiritual materials, fishing, and so on, and immersed themselves in the sea of knowledge. This behavior of the players was even recorded into a video by a player and posted on the most popular game video portal in the country, Shark. It also caused a heated discussion among external netizens. There's no future in playing games. Look at the high-quality players of Battle Online, we only love to study, righteous emoji. In the video, there were figures of players holding books and memorizing them in every corner of the Mansion of the Dead. Some of the players who gathered together to discuss had different opinions about the contents of the book. They argued until their faces were red, just like scholars. The players who had never played Battle Online before were dumbfounded by what they saw. Sword dancing in the world. I've always heard that Battle Online is a magical game. This time, I'm completely convinced. Isn't learning in the game asking for trouble? Dumbfounded emoji, MC player. I'm trembling. Is this game so scary that it can convert a group of gamers who love games into learning? Lazy cancer patient. Pff. I was taking a sip of water when I watched the video, and I couldn't help but spit it out. This was just too amazing. When I was in school, those students who didn't get good grades had neglected their studies because they were addicted to gaming. This was the first time I saw someone who loved studying because they were addicted to gaming. Sure enough, the players of Battle Royale couldn't be measured with common sense. One sword breaks mountains and rivers. Can we say that Battle Online has forcibly raised the quality of domestic players? Spring Water Commander. This is insane. How did Battle Online do it? His curiosity was overflowing. Crayon_Shinchan replied to the Spring Water Commander. I'm just passing by. Battle Online players are passionate about learning. Don't guess or doubt, we're just trying to enrich our experience and improve our self-restraint. Laughing emoji. Compared to the heated discussions in the external forums, the discussions in Battle's official forum were much more heated. This time, the content of the discussion was no longer miscellaneous game content. It was all posts asking questions or expressing their own views on the content of the book. With nearly 30 million players vying for 10,000 spots, the acceptance rate was even lower than that of a civil servant. However, the players did not give up. They all wanted to give it a try because they were all equal in this trial. All of them were starting from scratch and had no foundation to speak of. However, the obscure alchemy books still tortured them to death. Many players could not progress at all if they did not discuss and verify with each other. At this moment, the players even had the urge to kill the developers of Battle Online. They could not understand why the mastermind behind Battle Online would write these 3 books just to torture them. They must be really bored to a certain extent. If they had so much free time, why didn't they research and develop more game functions that would help the players develop? This was what all the players were thinking. What made them even more frustrated was that the contents of these books were quite reasonable. Some players who studied medicine even found that many of the contents in the books could be verified in reality. Although they could not find spiritual materials in reality, some of the viewpoints in the books were really empathizing with them. At this moment, the players once again confirmed their speculation. The members of the development team behind Battle Online were all monsters. They were the terrifying type. This was because the knowledge reflected in the game actually covered all fields, from the initial combat skills in reality to the current situation. The players were shocked again and again with the fact. Therefore, during this period of time, the players gave the mysterious team behind Battle Online a name, the Devil Group, meaning that everyone in the team was a devil-level genius. Faced with the abuse of the Devil Group, the players could not resist and could only passively indulge in learning. Of course, during these 3 days of learning, there was also a group of players who were really addicted to learning. At the beginning, this group of players could be said to have forced themselves to learn. After all, in their opinion, how profound could the books in the game be? However, reality proved them wrong. They were ridiculously wrong. Although there were only 3 books, they felt that they would not be able to digest the content in detail even after a few months. These serious players were completely addicted to it and even began to practice. Relying on the content in the books and the spiritual materials in the game, they began experimenting with alchemy in advance. The result was, of course, appalling. Without rich experience and corresponding knowledge, refining medicine was not something that could be achieved with just good luck. However, since ancient times, there had never been a lack of people with a one-track mind. Most of the players gave up on experimenting, but some of the players did not give up and continued to experiment. On the 3rd day, there was even a player who successfully refined an elixir using the common fire in the game, completely shocking the entire Battle Online gaming circle. First Class Azure Spirit Pill, Inferior. Elixir Details. Beginner elixir with too many impurities inside. Consuming it is risky. Elixir effect. 30% chance of permanently increasing strength by 1 point. 70% chance of being poisoned and losing health continuously, 5 drops per second. This elixir can permanently increase the strength attribute of the player by 10 points. Once the attribute increase reaches 10 points, the player will develop immunity to this elixir. Alchemist's Seal. Rising Wind player. The appearance of this elixir could be said to have made the players go crazy. This was because the players knew that the elixir produced by the alchemist had the effect of permanently increasing attribute. What kind of concept was this? This meant that the future of the alchemist was limitless. The value of this kind of permanently increasing attribute elixir was obvious. Moreover, as the alchemist's level increased, they would definitely be able to refine more powerful permanently increasing attribute elixir. The appearance of this elixir had also stunned the players who were still training and killing monsters, thinking that the alchemist had no future. At this moment, they were all wailing, feeling that they had lost a chance to make a comeback and rise. Therefore, a large group of players who wanted to cram at the last minute swarmed into the mansion of the dead, joining the ranks of those who wanted to change their fate by reading. The sound of reading echoed in the sky above the mansion of the dead. It was completely sleepless. Training, instance dungeons, exploration. None of this mattered anymore. At this moment, the players only wanted to learn. Even the gods could not stop them. Chapter 283. On the second day after the apothecary trial was released, a strange scene appeared in the mansion of the dead. The players were holding thick books in their hands and reading them seriously with their heads down. They looked like they were studying hard and making progress every day. Even the way they communicated with each other had changed. Passerby A. Brother, where are we going to level up today? Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. Passerby A. Brother, I found an island in the void ocean today. There might be treasures on it. Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. Passerby A. Brother, we haven't farmed the dungeon today. It's time to go. Passerby B. No, don't disturb my study. What was even more ridiculous was that there was a group of players who hated studying during their school days. However, in order to advance to the apothecary class, they all became obedient children who loved to study. They would often gather together to discuss the contents of apothecary book. According to a certain player, if he had been as hard-working as he was now when he was studying, he might have been admitted to Tsinghua University. Faced with the uncompromising officials, the players had no choice but to study hard. After all, there were no shortcuts this time. The only way to become an apothecary was to study hard. Because of this, a large number of players gave up their daily activities such as fighting monsters, farming spiritual materials, fishing, and so on, and immersed themselves in the sea of knowledge. This behavior of the players was even recorded into a video by a player and posted on the most popular game video portal in the country, Shark. It also caused a heated discussion among external netizens. There is no future in playing games. Look at the high-quality players of Battle Online, we only love to study, self-righteous emoji. In the video, there were figures of players holding books and memorizing them in every corner of the Mansion of the Dead. Some of the players who gathered together to discuss had different opinions about the contents of the book. They argued until their faces turned red, just like scholars. The players who had never played Battle Online before were dumbfounded by what they saw. Sword dancing in the world. I've always heard that Battle Online is a magical game. This time, I'm completely convinced. Isn't learning in the game asking for trouble? Dumbfounded emoji, MC player. I'm trembling. Is this game so scary that it can convert a group of gamers who love games into learning? Lazy cancer patient. I was taking a sip of water when I watched the video, and I couldn't help but spit it out. This was just too amazing. When I was in school, those students who didn't get good grades had neglected their studies because they were addicted to gaming. This was the first time I saw someone who loved studying because they were addicted to gaming. Sure enough, the players of Battle Royale couldn't be measured with common sense. One sword breaks mountains and rivers. Can we say that Battle Online has forcibly raised the quality of domestic players? Ah. Spring Water Commander, this is insane. How did Battle Online do it? His curiosity was overflowing. Crayon_Shinchan replied to the Spring Water Commander. Just passing by. Battle Online players love to learn. Don't guess, don't doubt, we're just trying to enrich our experience and improve our self-restraint. Laughing emoji. Compared to the heated discussions in the external forums, the discussions in Battle's official forum were much more heated. This time, the content of the discussion was no longer miscellaneous game content. It was all posts asking questions or expressing their own views on the content of the book. With nearly 30 million players vying for 10,000 spots, the acceptance rate was even lower than that of a civil servant. However, the players did not give up. They all wanted to give it a try because they were all equal in this trial. All of them were starting from scratch and had no foundation to speak of. However, the obscure alchemy books still tortured them to death. Many players could not progress at all if they did not discuss and verify with each other. At this moment, the players even had the urge to kill the developers of Battle Online. They could not understand why the mastermind behind Battle Online would write these 3 books just to torture them. They must be really bored to a certain extent. If they had so much spare time, why didn't they research and develop more game functions that would help the players develop? This was what all the players were thinking. What made them even more frustrated was that the contents of these books were quite reasonable. Some players who studied medicine even found that many of the contents in the books could be verified in reality. Although they could not find spiritual materials in reality, they could empathize with some of the viewpoints in the books. At this moment, the players once again confirmed their speculation. The members of the development team behind Battle Online were all monsters. They were the terrifying type. This was because the knowledge reflected in the game covered all fields, from the initial use of combat skills in reality to the current situation. The players were shocked again and again with the fact. Therefore, during this period of time, the players gave the mysterious team behind Battle Online a name, the Devil Group, meaning that everyone in the team was a devil-level genius. Faced with the abuse of the Devil Group, the players could not resist and could only passively indulge in learning. Of course, during these 3 days of learning, there was also a group of players who were really addicted to learning. At first, this group of players could be said to have forced themselves to learn. After all, in their opinion, how profound could the books in the game be? However, the facts proved them wrong. They were ridiculously wrong. Although there were only 3 books, they felt that they could not digest the content in detail even after a few months. These serious players were completely addicted to it. They even began to practice. Relying on the content in the books and the spiritual materials in the game, they began experimenting with alchemy in advance. The result was, of course, appalling. Without rich experience and corresponding knowledge, refining medicine was not something that could be achieved with just good luck. However, since ancient times, there had never been a lack of people with a one-track mind. Most of the players gave up on experimenting, but some of them did not give up and continued to try. On the 3rd day, there was even a player who successfully refined an elixir using the common fire in the game. It completely shocked the entire Battle Online gaming circle. First class Azure Spirit Pill, inferior. Elixir details. Beginner elixir with too many impurities. Consuming it is risky. Elixir effect. 30% chance of permanently increasing strength by 1 point. 70% chance of being poisoned and losing health continuously, 5 drops per second. This elixir can permanently increase the player's strength by 10 points. Once the attribute increase reaches 10 points, the player will develop immunity to this elixir. Alchemist's Seal. Rising Wind, player. The appearance of this elixir made the players go completely crazy. This was because the players knew that the elixir produced by the alchemist had the effect of permanently increasing attribute. What kind of concept was this? This meant that the future of the alchemist was limitless. The value of this kind of permanently increasing attribute elixir was obvious. Moreover, as the alchemist's level increased, they would definitely be able to refine more powerful permanently increasing attribute elixir. The appearance of this elixir also stunned the players who were still training and killing monsters. They thought that the alchemist had no future. At this moment, they were all wailing in grief. They felt that they had lost a chance to make a comeback. Therefore, a large group of players rushed into the mansion of the dead. They joined the ranks of those who read books to change their fate. The sound of reading echoed in the sky above the mansion of the dead. It was completely sleepless. Training, instance dungeons, exploration. None of these were important anymore. At this moment, the players only wanted to learn. Even the gods could not stop them. Chapter 284. The Medicine Refiner Trial continued. By the third hour, many players who were stuck in the first round could no longer identify the herb. They started stuffing all kinds of spiritual materials into the medicine furnace, trying to rely on luck to pass. At this moment, they were like the emergency measures they had taken when they faced multiple-choice questions they didn't know how to answer during the college entrance examination. However, medicine refinement was not something that could be done by luck alone. Doing so could easily cause the furnace to explode due to the mutual repulsion between the medicinal effects when the medicinal liquids fuse. Blind guessing was completely useless in medicine refinement, and the continuous furnace explosions made the players who had resorted to trickery disheartened. At this time, as the judge, Rock, after obtaining the trial space's authority, his gaze constantly swept over the players, looking for players with potential. After 3 hours of observation, one of the players' actions attracted his attention. This player's method was different from the majority of the other players. Half the trial time had passed, but this player had not yet started to refine medicine. He was still measuring the spiritual materials, and at the same time, dividing the measured spiritual materials into piles and placing them on the medicine refining table. Rock was not surprised that his process of refining medicine was different from the majority of the players. After all, he was not the only one doing this. There were also some players who did the same. What Rock found inconceivable was that this player had actually arranged more than 10 kinds of pill recipes. One had to know that the results of this trial were arranged according to point. Under these rules, the smartest thing to do was to choose the pill recipe that one was most proficient in, and then continuously refine it. It would be fine as long as one's points increased. However, this player actually wanted to refine more than 10 kinds of pills that required different methods and spiritual materials. This would undoubtedly greatly increase the difficulty of medicine refinement, and it would be disadvantageous to the ranking. Unless he had absolute confidence. Thinking of this, Rock's gaze swept over the spiritual materials that this player had placed on the medicine refining table, and he activated his analysis ability. Grade 1 Sumru Pill Recipe. 580 grams of Sumur grass, error 3%, 330 grams of purple heart fruit, error 3%, 220 grams of frost spirit rhizome, error 5%. Grade 1 Yin Yang Marrow Cleansing Pill Recipe. 120 grams of 9 orifices spirit flower, error 4%, 60 grams of Haoyuan cattail, error 6%. Grade 1 Clear Void Medicinal Liquid Recipe. 809 grams of dustfall fruit, error 7%, 700 grams of water spirit flower, error 5%, 550 grams of origin fruit peel, error 18%. Looking at the pile of spirit materials arranged according to the pill recipe, Pang Shi's heart trembled. Although there was a large error in the measurement of more than 10 kinds of spirit materials, one had to know that this person had only studied the contents of the book for 3 days. This kind of performance was already very heaven-defying in the rock boulder's eyes. What surprised the Rock Ghost King even more was that the player didn't use the electronic scale that Lu Wu gave him. He grabbed and weighed all the spiritual materials with his bare hands, then used his spirit blade to cut off the excess parts before putting them to use. The error of each spirit material was less than 10%, and he could use his hands to measure the proportions of the materials. In Rock's view, this player's skill had reached the threshold of a novice alchemist. At this moment, the Rock Ghost King was filled with anticipation. He recalled something that Lu Wu had once said. The player's potential was limitless. When the time reached the 4th hour, the player finally stopped measuring. After processing the medicinal ingredients in his hand, he placed them on the last pile of spiritual materials. This last pile of spirit materials once again attracted the boulder's attention. Second-grade Netherworld Cold Nightmare Pill Formula. 320G Flying Star Flower Stem and Leaf, error 21%. 1400G Yellow Dragon Fruit, error 23%. 2300G Barrier Breaking Water, error 33%. 388G Green Leaf Spiritual Soil, error 21%. F*CK. A second-grade elixir formula, what a genius! At this moment, the Rock Ghost King was beyond excited. After 3 days of learning, this player actually wanted to try refining a second-grade elixir. Although the error was huge, the Rock Ghost King was still filled with anticipation, waiting for this player to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. With only 2 hours left, the player finally made his move. He carried a pile of medicinal ingredients to the side of the alchemy furnace, lit the furnace fire, and began his first refining. 10 minutes later, bang! A cloud of black mist floated up, and the alchemy furnace shook. A failure notification appeared. However, there was no change in the player's expression. He carried another pile of spiritual materials to the side of the alchemy furnace and began his second attempt. Bang! Bang! The Rock Ghost King's expression gradually became awkward as he watched the player expectantly. There was less than an hour left, but the player kept making mistakes. Every time, the alchemy furnace would explode due to improper operation before he even completed half of the process. Looking at the remaining 5 sets of spiritual materials on the alchemy table, the Rock Ghost King was extremely frustrated. He initially thought that this player was a talented player with unlimited potential, but he didn't expect him to be a semi-talented player. He was too biased. Bang! Bang! Another series of cauldron explosions occurred. One had to know that cauldron explosions were the biggest failure in the alchemy process. In most cases, even a failure would not cause the cauldron to explode, but this player had clearly done it. The Rock Ghost King felt like he was watching a pig refine medicine. It was the last batch of elixirs, a second-grade elixir recipe, but the Rock Ghost King no longer had any hope. However, it had to be said that this player's state of mind was extremely good. Despite repeated extreme failures, he was still as calm as ever. He continued to refine the last set of medicinal ingredient. This time, he activated the fire according to his memory. First, he threw the flying stargrass into the alchemy furnace. After the flying stargrass melted, he threw in the yellow dragon fruit, barrier-breaking water, green leaf spirit soil. Next, he controlled the fire. Under his control, the medicinal liquids in the alchemy furnace began to gradually fuse. Seeing this, the Rock Ghost King was also stunned. Then, he calmed his heart and began to observe. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour passed. The medicinal liquids gradually formed, and the Rock Ghost King's originally calm heart became excited again. More than half of the alchemy steps had been completed, but this player actually did not make any mistake. All the operations were extremely standard. This made the Rock Ghost King excited again. It's going to succeed, it's going to succeed. Compared to this player's calmness, the Rock Ghost King was much more excited. After all, at this moment, he might be witnessing the birth of an alchemy master with unlimited possibilities. Time passed again. It was the final critical moment. The medicinal liquid had already condensed into the size of a ping-pong ball in the alchemy furnace. It was about to condense into an elixir. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise, and the alchemy furnace shook violently. A thick black mushroom cloud appeared above the alchemy furnace and spread. The Rock Ghost King. At this moment, the Rock Ghost King was completely dumbfounded. He could not understand. He clearly could condense the elixir by stabilizing the fire. Even if he failed, the medicinal liquid should just turn to ash. How on earth did he manage to make the alchemy furnace explode again? Chapter 285. The Medicine Refiner Trial continued. By the third hour, many players who were stuck in the first round could no longer identify the herb. They started stuffing all kinds of spiritual materials into the medicine furnace, trying to rely on luck to pass. At this moment, they were like the emergency measures they had taken when they faced multiple-choice questions they didn't know how to answer during the college entrance examination. However, medicine refinement was not something that could be done by luck alone. Doing so could easily cause the furnace to explode due to the mutual repulsion between the medicinal effects when the medicinal liquids fuse. Blind guessing was completely useless in medicine refinement, and the continuous furnace explosions made the players who had resorted to trickery disheartened. At this time, as the judge, Rock, after obtaining the trial space's authority, his gaze constantly swept over the players, looking for players with potential. After 3 hours of observation, one of the players' actions attracted his attention. This player's method was different from the majority of the other players. Half the trial time had passed, but this player had not yet started to refine medicine. He was still measuring the spiritual materials, and at the same time, dividing the measured spiritual materials into piles and placing them on the medicine refining table. Rock was not surprised that his process of refining medicine was different from the majority of the players. After all, he was not the only one doing this. There were also some players who did the same. What Rock found inconceivable was that this player had actually arranged more than 10 kinds of pill recipes. One had to know that the results of this trial were arranged according to point. Under these rules, the smartest thing to do was to choose the pill recipe that one was most proficient in, and then continuously refine it. It would be fine as long as one's points increased. However, this player actually wanted to refine more than 10 kinds of pills that required different methods and spiritual materials. This would undoubtedly greatly increase the difficulty of refining medicine, and it would be disadvantageous for him to reach the rankings. Unless he had absolute confidence. Thinking of this, Rock's gaze swept over the spiritual materials that this player had placed on the medicine refining table, and he activated his analysis ability. Grade 1 Sumeru Pill Recipe. 580 grams of Sumeru grass, error 3%, 330 grams of purple heart fruit, error 3%, 220 grams of frost spirit rhizome, error 5%. Grade 1 Yin Yang Marrow Cleansing Pill Recipe. 120 grams of 9 orifices spirit flower, error 4%, 60 grams of Haoyuan cattail, error 6%. Grade 1 Clear Void Medicine Recipe. 809 grams of dustfall fruit, error 7%, 700 grams of water spirit flower, error 5%, 550 grams of origin fruit peel, error 18%. Looking at the pile of spirit materials arranged according to the pill recipe, Pang Shi's heart trembled. Although there was a large error in the measurement of more than 10 kinds of spirit materials, one had to know that this person had only studied the contents of the book for 3 days. This kind of performance was already very heaven-defying in the rock boulder's eyes. What surprised the Rock Ghost King even more was that the player didn't use the electronic scale that Lu Wu gave him. He grabbed and weighed all the spiritual materials with his bare hands, then used his spirit blade to cut off the excess parts before putting them to use. The error of each spirit material was less than 10%, and he could use his hands to measure the proportions of the materials. In Rock's view, this player's skill had reached the threshold of a novice alchemist. At this moment, the Rock Ghost King was filled with anticipation. He recalled something that Lu Wu had once said. The player's potential was limitless. When the time reached the 4th hour, the player finally stopped measuring. After processing the medicinal ingredients in his hand, he placed them on the last pile of spiritual materials. This last pile of spirit materials once again attracted the boulder's attention. Second-grade Netherworld Cold Nightmare Pill Formula, 320G Flying Star Flower Stem and Leaf, error 21%, 1400G Yellow Dragon Fruit, error 23%, 2300G Barrier Breaking Water, error 33%, 388G Green Leaf Spiritual Soil, error 21%, F*CK. A second-grade elixir formula, what a genius! At this moment, the Rock Ghost King was beyond excited. After 3 days of learning, this player actually wanted to try refining a second-grade elixir. Although the error was huge, the Rock Ghost King was still filled with anticipation, waiting for this player to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. With only 2 hours left, the player finally made his move. He carried a pile of medicinal ingredients to the side of the alchemy furnace, lit the furnace fire, and began his first refining. 10 minutes later, bang! A cloud of black mist floated up, and the alchemy furnace shook. A failure notification appeared. However, the player's expression didn't change. He carried another pile of spiritual materials to the side of the alchemy furnace and began his second attempt. Bang! Bang! The Rock Ghost King's expression gradually became awkward as he watched the player expectantly. There was less than an hour left, but the player kept making mistakes. Every time, the alchemy furnace would explode due to improper operation before he was even halfway through the process. Looking at the remaining 5 sets of spiritual materials on the alchemy table, the Rock Ghost King was extremely frustrated. He initially thought that this player was a talented player with unlimited potential, but he didn't expect him to be a semi-talented player. He was too biased. Bang! Bang! Another series of cauldron explosions occurred. One had to know that cauldron explosions were the biggest failure in the alchemy process. In most cases, even a failure would not cause the cauldron to explode, but this player had clearly done it. The Rock Ghost King felt like he was watching a pig refine medicine. It was the last batch of elixirs, a second-grade elixir recipe, but the Rock Ghost King didn't have any hope. However, it had to be said that this player's mentality was extremely good. Despite repeated extreme failures, he was still as calm as ever. He continued to refine the last set of medicinal ingredient. This time, he activated the fire according to his memory. First, he threw the flying star grass into the alchemy furnace. After the flying star grass melted, he threw in the yellow dragon fruit, barrier breaking water, green leaf spirit soil. Then, he controlled the fire. Under his control, the medicinal liquids in the alchemy furnace began to gradually fuse. Seeing this, the Rock Ghost King was also stunned. Then, he calmed his heart and began to observe. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour passed. The medicinal liquids gradually formed, and the Rock Ghost King's originally calm heart became fervent again. More than half of the alchemy steps had been completed, but this player actually didn't make any mistakes. All the operations were extremely standard. This made the Rock Ghost King excited again. It's going to succeed, it's going to succeed. Compared to this player's calmness, the Rock Ghost King was much more excited. After all, at this moment, he might be witnessing the birth of an alchemy master with unlimited possibilities. Time passed again. It was the final critical moment. The medicinal liquid had already condensed into the size of a ping-pong ball in the alchemy furnace. It was about to condense into an elixir. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise, and the alchemy furnace shook violently. A thick black mushroom cloud appeared above the alchemy furnace and spread. The Rock Ghost King, At this moment the Rock Ghost King was completely dumbfounded. He didn't understand. He could clearly condense the pill by stabilizing the fire. Even if he failed, the medicinal liquid should just turn to ash. How on earth did he manage to make the alchemy furnace explode again? Chapter 286. The Medicine Refiner Trial continued. By the third hour, many players who were stuck in the first round could no longer identify the herb. They started stuffing all kinds of spirit materials into the medicine furnace, trying to rely on luck to pass. At this moment, they were like the emergency measures they had taken when they faced multiple-choice questions they didn't know how to answer during the college entrance examination. However, medicine refinement was not something that could be done with luck alone. Doing so could easily cause furnace explosions due to the mutual repulsion between the medicinal effects when the medicinal liquids fuse. Blind guesses were completely useless when it came to alchemy, and the continuous explosions of the furnaces had caused the players who had resorted to trickery to be disheartened. At this time, as the judge, Rock, after obtaining the trial space's authority, his gaze constantly swept over the players, looking for players with potential. After 3 hours of observation, one of the players' actions attracted his attention. This player's method was different from the majority of the other players. Half the trial time had passed, but this player still had not started medicine refinement. Instead, he was still measuring the quantity of spirit materials. At the same time, he divided the spirit materials that had already been measured into piles and placed them on the medicine refining table. Rock was not surprised that his process of medicine refinement was different from the majority of the players. After all, he was not the only one doing this. There were also some players who did this. What Rock found inconceivable was that this player had actually arranged more than 10 kinds of medicine refinement recipes. One had to know that the results of this trial were arranged according to point. Under these rules, the smartest thing to do was to choose the pill recipe that one was most proficient in and then continuously refine it. It would be fine as long as one's points increased. However, this player actually wanted to refine more than 10 kinds of medicine that required different methods and spirit materials. This would undoubtedly greatly increase the difficulty of medicine refinement and be disadvantageous to the ranking. Unless he had absolute confidence. Thinking of this, Rock's gaze swept over the spirit materials that this player had placed on the medicine refining table and activated his analysis ability. Grade 1 Sumeru Pill Recipe. 580 grams of Sumeru Grass, error 3%, 330 grams of Purple Heart Fruit, error 3%, 220 grams of Frost Spirit Rhizome, error 5%. Grade 1 Yin Yang Marrow Cleansing Pill Recipe. 120 grams of 9 Orifices Spirit Flower, error 4%, 60 grams of Haoyuan Cattail, error 6%. Grade 1 Clear Void Medicinal Liquid Recipe. 809 grams of Dustfall Fruit, error 7%, 700 grams of Water Spirit Flower, error 5%, 550 grams of Origin Fruit Peel, error 18%. Looking at the pile of spirit materials placed on the medicine refining table, Rock's heart skipped a beat. Although the overall error of measuring more than 10 spiritual materials was not small, this player had only studied the contents of the books for 3 days. This performance was already incredible in Rock's eyes. What surprised Rock more was that this player did not use the electronic scale that Lou had provided. Instead, he grabbed and weighed all the spiritual materials with his hand. He of all of the spiritual materials before using the excess parts with his spirit blade. The error of each spiritual material was less than 10%, and he was able to weigh the ingredients with width of the ingredients with his hands. The Rock refining skill. Rock to fill of Lou in of the stone, and he thought. And of Lou had of Rock of Lou. The have it of the players have it, longer of players of the players of the to they could to. They added. The players worse, and of Zer. Re the last time. T2. Of the last. Spirit materials. Second grade Netherworld Cold Nightmare Pill Formula. 320G Flying Star Flower Stem and Leaf, error 21%. 1400G Yellow Dragon Fruit, error 23%. 2300G Barrier Breaking Water, error 33%. 388G Green Leaf Spiritual Soil, error 21%. F***CK. Level 2 Elixir Formula. What a genius! At this moment, Rock Ghost King was extremely excited. After 3 days of learning, this player actually wanted to try refining a grade 2 medicinal pill. Although the deviation was huge, Rock was still filled with anticipation, waiting for this player to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. With only 2 hours left, the player finally made his move. He carried a pile of herbs to the side of the alchemy furnace, ignited the furnace fire, and began his first refining. 10 minutes later, purring, a mass of black fog floated up, and the medicine furnace shook. A failure notification appeared. However, the player's expression did not change at all. He picked up another pile of spiritual materials and came to the side of the cauldron for a second attempt. Bang! Bang! The Rock Ghost King's expression gradually turned awkward as he watched the player expectantly. There was less than an hour left, yet the player had made repeated mistakes. Moreover, the furnace would explode before he was even halfway through the process. Looking at the remaining 5 sets of spirit materials on the pill refining table, Pang Shi felt his balls ache. Originally, he had thought that this player was a talented player with limitless potential. He hadn't expected this player to be a half-talented player. Pung! Pung! Another series of furnace explosions occurred. One had to know that furnace explosions were the biggest failure in the process of refining medicine. In most cases, even a failure in refining would not cause the furnace to explode. However, this player had clearly done it. Rock Ghost King felt like he was watching a pig concoct medicine. It was the last batch of medicinal pills, a grade 2 elixir formula. However, Pang Shi no longer held any hope. However, it had to be said that this player's mentality was excellent. Despite repeated extreme failures, he was still as calm as ever. He continued to refine the last set of medicinal materials. This time, he activated the furnace fire according to his memory. First, he threw the flying stargrass into the medicine furnace. After the flying stargrass melted, he threw in yellow dragon fruit, barrier breaking water, green leaf spirit soil. Next, he controlled the furnace fire. Under his control, the medicinal liquids in the medicine furnace began to gradually fuse. Seeing this, Pang Shi was stunned. Then, he calmed his heart and began to observe again. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour passed. The medicinal liquids gradually formed, and Pang Shi's originally calm heart became fervent again. More than half of the medicine refining steps had been completed, and this player actually made no mistake. All the operations were extremely standard. This made Pang Shi look forward to it again. It's going to succeed, it's going to succeed. Compared to this player's calmness, Pang Shi was much more excited. After all, at this moment, he might be witnessing the birth of a master alchemist with limitless potential. Time passed again. It was the final critical moment. The medicinal liquid in the medicine furnace had already condensed to the size of a ping-pong ball. It was about to condense into a medicinal pill. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise. The medicine furnace shook violently. A thick, black mushroom cloud appeared above the medicine furnace and spread. Pang Shi! At this moment, Pang Shi was completely dumbfounded. He couldn't understand. He could clearly condense the pill by stabilizing the fire. Even if he failed, only the medicinal liquid would turn to ash. How on earth did he manage to make the medicine furnace explode again? Chapter 287. The players gritted their teeth in hatred after being fooled by the naughty officials once again. They posted on the forum collectively, "Your players are pissed to death and can no longer play the game properly." Obviously, Lu Wu would not care about the players' protests. Hence, the players who had nowhere to vent their anger decided to stir up trouble again. This time, they formed small teams and headed toward the land of the 9 luminaries. After all, the people of Bakey were on the same side at this stage. It was too embarrassing to farm monsters, so the land of the 9 luminaries naturally became their first target. The Sea King was still developing at this stage, so it was not the time to harvest him yet. However, the players' slogan for this expedition was very righteous, saying that they would avenge Boss Yu Yao. Such a shameless slogan was unified among the players. It could be said that they had a good reason to attack. The continuous harassment and plundering of the players had also alarmed the brothers of the 9 luminaries. The land of the 9 luminaries, Dark Heaven Pavilion. The 8 brothers of the 9 luminaries were silent at this moment. The 5th brother, Jin Yao, and the 9th brother, Earth Yao, were gulping down wine. Smack! Suddenly, Jin Yao slammed the wine glass in his hand on the table. Second brother is dead. Don't you guys want to say something? 8th brother, we knew our limits when we attacked last time. Although second brother was seriously injured, he definitely wouldn't die. The 3rd brother, Ri Yao, said with a sullen face. Jin Yao was furious when he heard that. He kicked the table in front of him. Now, all the forces of Bakey are here with the excuse of avenging second brother. How dare you say that he won't die? We are brothers, how could you do this to us? 8th brother, we definitely knew our limits when we attacked. Second brother's death is suspicious. His Excellency Xing Yao said. Limits? I asked Messenger Yu and he told me that all the forces of Bakey have pledged their loyalty to Yu Yao. There is no possibility of betrayal. Can you explain how second brother died? Maybe he was seriously injured and met a strong enemy like Lai Shan on his way back to Bakey. Hui Yao was extremely depressed. Although he had a falling out with Yu Yao, it was just a moment of impulse. Now that he knew that Yu Yao was dead, he couldn't help but feel regretful. After all, he was his brother who grew up with him. The main problem now is that the forces of Bakey are constantly harassing us. We have to settle this matter first. Xing Yao's words made everyone fall into silence again. This was because they did not know how to respond to the repeated assaults and harassment by the forces of Bakey in small group. After all, the forces of Bakey were here to avenge Yu Yao, who was their brother. The 8 brothers felt guilty for his death, so they had no intention of sending troops to fight against the forces of Bakey. However, it was obviously unrealistic to not solve the problem of Bakey's invasion. By the way, is Moon Fong of the Yu Yao army still in Bakey? Should we ask him to bring the Yu Yao army back first? Sun asked. I've sent Messenger Yu to Bakey once, but the Moonfong only told him from afar at the city gate that the Yu Yao army would never return to the land of the 9 luminaries, and that they would fight to the death with us. Jin Yao said. Upon hearing this, the 9 luminaries' brothers felt their heads aching. Why don't we send one of us to Bakey to take over as His Excellency and pacify all the forces in Bakey? Ri Yao voiced out his opinion. Let's wait a little longer. The forces of Bakey are obviously a little too aggressive now. After all, peace has finally been restored from the war, but the second brother hasn't even sat on the throne for a few days. Sigh. Xing Yao couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. What should we do now? The forces of Bakey are still invading us. Defend, but don't take the initiative to attack. After all, they will be our subordinates in the future. The rest of the brothers nodded subconsciously at Xing Yao's decision. It was obvious that this was the best choice at this stage. Naturally, the players did not know the decision of the 9 luminaries' brothers. However, they also realized that the measures taken by the strongholds of the land of the 9 luminaries were too conservative in the face of their invasion. The players were not stupid, and they quickly figured out the reason. It was obviously related to the dead Yu Yao. This made the players even more unscrupulous. After all, it was fine as long as they shouted "Avenge His Excellency Yu Yao" before the battle began. Hence, the players had completely shifted from Beiki to the land of the 9 luminaries. Moreover, the players of Beiki also realized that the area of the 9 luminaries was rich in spiritual ores. Many of the looted spiritual ores were sold very well in the trading house. Basically, the players from Naraka came to purchase them from other servers. This really gave the players of Beiki a way to make a fortune. They specifically attacked the strongholds where the spiritual ores and resources were stored. Faced with the repeated harassment of the players, the legions under the 9 luminaries were suffering in silence. Moreover, due to the invasion of the forces of Beiki, they had lost a few small strongholds, losing many soldiers and resources. However, the higher-ups had ordered that they could only defend and were not allowed to take the initiative to attack. This made them extremely frustrated. Looking at the players' various provocations outside, they really had the urge to rush out and kill them. Land of the 9 luminaries, Foamy Hills. This time, the players had found a small stronghold and started to harass it. A few big guilds even joined forces, planning to uproot and plunder this stronghold that was close to Beiki. Faced with the players' fierce attack, the stronghold's gate was quickly lost. The warriors inside could only fight against the players. At the same time, at the stronghold's gate, Sun Chi, who was healing the guild members, suddenly felt a familiar wave of resonance coming from the stronghold. It was a wonderful feeling, like a mother calling her wandering son who had left home. "My mom doesn't play games." Sun Chi suddenly came back to his senses. However, this lingering feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. After thinking for a while, he turned his head and looked at Guyu. "Boss, I want to go in and see my mom." "Let's go in and see what's attracting me." Guyu was stunned when he heard this. He then glanced at the stronghold that was almost conquered and nodded. "Go, don't die." "Okay." After getting Guyu's permission, Sun Chi dashed into the stronghold like a happy rabbit. With the addition of double attributes, the soldiers stationed at the stronghold could not stop him at all. They could only watch helplessly as Sun Chi dashed into the stronghold. After making several turns in the stronghold, Sun Chi arrived in front of a wooden house. The familiar aura was coming from inside. After thinking for a while, Sun Chi relied on his skinny body and crawled into the wooden house through the crack. It was dark all around. Sun Chi sniffed subconsciously. The familiar aura was very strong, as if it was right in front of him. Suddenly, a pair of dark green eyes lit up in the darkness, giving him a shock. At this moment, crystal green light spots appeared in the wooden house, dispelling the darkness and illuminating the surroundings. Sun Chi was very familiar with these green light spots. They were exactly the same as the light spots that were produced when he released his skills. Then, he saw a snow-white spirit deer squatting on the ground not far away. Its body was still tied up by several iron chains. At this moment it looked very dispirited and weak. "White Phantom." Sun Chi immediately recognized the spirit deer when he saw it. Hearing Sun Chi's shout, White Phantom slowly turned its head. After seeing Sun Chi, it also seemed a little surprised. Then, its eyes gradually became disdainful, and it let out a low whine. The third sound, dragging out the sound, Sun Chi naturally saw the disdain in White Phantom's eyes. He was immediately unhappy and slapped the ground with his claws. "What's with that look? Do you still want me to save you?" White Phantom continued to stare at Sun Chi for a while, and let out another sound. This made Sun Chi very angry. "Motherf **Ker, it's fine if the players laugh at me, but we're all the same kind. What right do you have to despise me?" At this moment, there was a sudden movement outside the wooden door. Then, the wooden door was violently smashed, and Guyu's figure appeared. "Pfft, ha ha ha, Sun Chi, this is your mother." Seeing the two white phantoms, one big and one small, inside, Guyu could not help but laugh out loud. The players who had already conquered the stronghold heard this, and poked their heads in to look. Then, they all burst into laughter. Chapter 288. After yesterday's looting battle, the players once again obtained a large amount of spiritual ore. These spiritual ores were not as useful to the Baiki players as spiritual materials. After the major guilds divided them, they mostly chose to sell them in the auction house. Since cross-server purchases were allowed between the three regions at this stage, the spiritual ores were basically bought by the Naraka server players who were taking the path of mecha development. The transaction price was not low either. Cross-server shopping was also a game function that Lu Wu considered to complement the resources between the regions. It was very beneficial to the overall development of the players. However, cross-server purchases naturally came with a price. All cross-server purchases required the players to pay an additional 10% handling fee. This was equivalent to Lu Wu receiving 2 portions of commission, the auction house handling fee for the players who sold the items and the cross-server players who bought the items. Because of this, the soul coins in Lu Wu's hands increased rapidly. Many of the envisaged game constructions could once again be put on the agenda. Baiki, Mansion of the Dead. At this time, in an empty space in the Mansion of the Dead square, the dog and the white phantom spiritual deer stared at each other. "You can talk." The dog looked at the white phantom and asked. "Of course we are the same species. Of course you can understand me." The white phantom rolled its eyes at the dog in disdain. The disdain on its face did not diminish at all. "I was the one who saved you. How dare you act so righteously?" The dog was immediately displeased when faced with the arrogant white phantom. "I'm your senior and I'm a pure-blooded white phantom. You're just a hybrid and young white phantom. How can you compare to me? Besides, isn't it your duty to save the noble me?" The white phantom continued with its arrogant face. At this moment, the dog truly regretted saving this unreasonable white phantom. After some thought, the dog decided not to reason with the white phantom anymore. He asked the question in his heart. "Then do you have a way to make me evolve in advance?" This problem had been bothering Sun Chi for a long time. There was not a moment when he did not want to get rid of the body of a dog that made him gnash his teeth in hatred. However, the second stage of evolution would only be activated at level 150. Now that he had seen the real white phantom, he naturally could not wait any longer. Moreover, evolving into a noble white phantom spiritual deer was the source of comfort and hope for the dog. Every time in his dreams, he would imagine himself turning into a snow-white spiritual deer, leaping and running in the wilderness. However, the reality was that he was still a weak little white dog. "It's simple. You'll evolve when you grow up. Dog, right, doggy, were you captured and tamed into a mount by an alien race?" the white phantom asked worriedly as it looked at the passing players. "You're the mount." Hearing that, the dog raised his paw and slammed it on the ground, baring his teeth at the white phantom. The white phantom's words reminded him of the unpleasant memories he had in the European server. It also reminded him of the dog's charge emoticon that was commonly used by the players on the forum. How pitiful! Back then, the alien race that imprisoned me also wanted to tame me as a mount, but I would rather die than submit. As expected, I, who have a noble bloodline, have a much higher level of consciousness than you. TSK, TSK, TSK. At this moment, Sun Chi had the urge to rush forward and tear the white phantom apart. Just as Sun Chi was about to fly into a rage, the white phantom suddenly spoke. "But you saved me. Although this is what you should do, I won't owe you anything. This way, I can help you evolve in advance." Sun Chi's body, which was leaning forward, came to an abrupt halt. He somersaulted forward and fell sprawled on the ground. Then, he stood up with bright eyes. "You can help me evolve?" "Of course, I can help you, Mixed Blood Jr. Come on, what should I do?" Sun Chi automatically ignored the fact that the white phantom had called him a Mixed Blood Jr. At this moment, he just wanted to evolve quickly. After all, he had enough of being a little white dog. "Lower your head to me and accept the inheritance and blessing that I, as your senior, bestow upon you." The white phantom stood up and raised its head elegantly. Endure. Temporary compromise was for evolution, to get rid of the dog body. After struggling with his thoughts, Sun Chi walked up to the white phantom and lowered his head. Seeing this, the white phantom's eyes revealed a hint of satisfaction. Then, it raised its head and let out a long howl. The mansion of the Dead's Plaza immediately began to rain spiritual rain, made up of green spots of light. This instantly attracted the attention of a large number of players, who stopped to observe or take pictures. In the center of the spiritual rain, green-white phantom inheritance runes appeared on the surface of Sun Chi's body. At this moment, a game notification appeared, and the inheritance information began to be digitized with the help of the artifact. Game notification. Unlocking the hidden condition for class advancement. Receive the inherited memory from Bai Ling, White Phantom. Game notification. Class advancement has begun in advance. Seeing the game notification, Sun Chi's eyes brimmed with tears. At this moment, he knew that he was finally going to bid farewell to his dog body. There was no trace of reluctance in his heart, only hysterical happiness. This was because he had had enough of being a little white dog. He felt that becoming a spiritual deer would be 10,000 times better than being a little white dog. During the inheritance process, Sun Chi realized that the attribute points on his attribute panel had begun to jump and were slowly increasing. His body also felt a little bloated. Was he going to evolve? Sun Chi's mind began to imagine his evolved form with the white phantom in front of him as his foundation. He could not suppress the excitement in his heart. Many players had heard through the forum that Sun Chi was going to evolve. Instantly, they swarmed toward the mansion of the Dead's Plaza, wanting to see what Sun Chi would look like after his evolution. However, the surrounding players still felt that it was a pity that Sun Chi was going to evolve. After all, they had already fallen in love with Sun Chi's little white dog form. They would not be able to adapt to the sudden change. The inheritance process lasted for about half an hour. The green spiritual rain that sprinkled on the mansion of the Dead's Plaza slowly dispersed. The white phantom also stopped chanting weakly. Sun Chi, we're even now. Upon hearing this, Sun Chi did not open his eyes. Instead, he called out the attribute panel and checked it first. Player. Sun Chi level 121, 26% class. White Phantom Spiritual Beast. Form 2, details of White Phantom Spiritual Beast. A rare nether spirit beast unique to the land of Baki. The noble bloodline of the mythical beast flows in its body. Whenever its lifespan is near, it will find a hidden place to leave its life inheritance for fated creatures to inherit. Class characteristics. Growth attributes increase by 100% with each level up. Its blood has a miraculous healing effect. At level 150/180/200/220, the corresponding inherited ability will be learned. Second stage of class. Healing effect increased by 50%. Acquired second stage ability, Healing Chain. Healing Chain, talent skill. Skill effect. Lock on a target as the source of healing and release healing psionic power on it. When the player's HP reaches 100%, the healing effect will automatically jump to the next target, forming the effect of Healing Chain. Healing Chain can only connect to a maximum of 30 players. Seeing that he had indeed evolved, Sun Chi could not suppress the excitement in his heart. He finally opened his eyes slowly. Why is my line of sight still so low? Suddenly, Sun Chi had a bad feeling. He raised his paws and looked at them, only to find that they did not turn into deer hooves. Sun Chi immediately looked at the white phantom nervously and asked, "Have I really evolved? Did my form change?" The white phantom nodded indifferently. "Yes, I have evolved. My form has changed." Sun Chi took a deep breath and clicked on the character panel with trembling hands. Then, he let out a wail. At this time, Sun Chi was still in his original form of a little white dog on the character panel. The only difference was that there was a pair of deer antlers on his head that were obviously undeveloped. Pfft, haha, brother dog, congratulations on the successful evolution. Your new form is so cool. As expected of our brother dog. He's grown antlers after evolution. He's really bright and promising. He'll definitely achieve great things in the future. Brother dog has grown antlers. The lethality of his charge in the future will be even greater. Cool. Perfect. Listening to the discussions of the players around him, Sun Chi looked at the white phantom in front of him with eyes full of resentment. Then, he slowly lay down on the ground and started sobbing as he looked at the blue sky. The promised new life, the promised noble attitude, it's all gone. It's all gone. Chapter 289. The Rock Ghost King felt helpless when he encountered a player like Nie Fong who only took half a day to compose. He felt that he could not provide any guidance with his abilities and was mentally exhausted. Upon hearing this, the players' expressions did not change much. After the official start of the alchemy course, the players quickly moved to the right side with their alchemy furnaces, far away from the square on the left. After all, the alchemists present had the support of the Grand Duke, so consuming some spiritual materials was not a problem at all. However, after knowing the value of being an alchemist, they still chose to immerse themselves in learning and were reluctant to give up the alchemist profession that they had worked so hard for. Murphy was startled and took a step back subconsciously. The reason they were here was one of the benefits of becoming an alchemist. The Rock Ghost King had started the first alchemist training course for them to follow and learn for a month. At this time, the 10,000 players who had obtained the alchemist profession had gathered outside the Rock Ghost King's Alchemy Association, waiting for the doors to open. Meanwhile, the players began to get busy. Unlike Tong Gua, the Rock Ghost King opened his business on time and had a regular schedule. However, he also had to earn a living. After giving out instructions for the first half of the day, the Rock Ghost King walked out of the Alchemy Association to find Tong Gua for a drink. The players were dumbfounded by the number of alchemy-related books. Naturally, the players were grateful for the Rock Ghost King's guidance, and were not dissatisfied with it. In the afternoon, the Rock Ghost King appeared in the Alchemy Association again. When it was 8 in the morning, the doors of the association opened. Don't worry, just follow my lead. I guarantee there will be no problem. Murphy, who was skillfully measuring the medicinal ingredients, replied in his heart. The building where the Rock Ghost King was located was different from Tong Gua's forge. The interior was a space that was the size of 2 football fields. It was not a problem for it to accommodate 10,000 players. It was basically the same situation for the past few days. Bakey Mansion of the Dead. Now that the Rock Ghost King's advancement to the advanced stage of the Ghost King was just around the corner, what he lacked was soul coins. Hence, why would he give away something that could earn him money for free? The Rock Ghost King had his eyes on the soul coins in the hands of the players. At this time, the Rock Ghost King's figure appeared. Of course, he had reported this deal to Lu Wu, and Lu Wu had agreed to it on the condition of 80% profit. Realizing the problem, Rock snorted coldly and turned to leave. This allowed Murphy to heave a sigh of relief, and he once again immersed himself in refining the medicine. The entire process seemed to be a projection of each other. After careful inspection, the boulder was shocked to find that the weights of the 2 players were exactly the same. Nie Fong was now completely famous among the alchemist players. They called him Bomberman. He didn't have to worry about the players either. They took the initiative to learn seriously. After all, this was something that was beneficial to them. Every time they learned, they would see results in potion making. At this moment, Rock's figure suddenly appeared in front of Murphy and looked at him with a strange expression. The reason was simple. There was a player on the left called Nie Fong, and the entire area on the left was his territory. In fact, in terms of spiritual materials, he definitely had the most. After all, he had an army of tree demons. In fact, it wasn't just this time. It was the same during the alchemy trial. The two of them relied on their unique trait of having one soul to cheat the entire time. The players who had been waiting had looks of anticipation on their faces as they walked in one by one. This scared the boulder. He didn't believe that this was a coincidence. After officially becoming an alchemist, these 10,000 players were no longer limited to the 3 basic alchemy books. Instead, they had memorized more than 30 books. At the same time, the boulder noticed that little Pomelo, who was refining the medicine, had taken a step back. Although he had an extremely high talent for learning, and his understanding and control of various elixirs were admirable by many players, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. It was inevitable that the furnace would explode during the operation. There were no exceptions. The room on the left was engulfed in smoke, as if it was on fire. The thick black fog had even obscured Niefeng's figure. The afternoon class was the most important. The boulder would supervise the players while they were refining the medicine and point out any shortcomings. Halfway through the afternoon's alchemy class, the Boulder Alchemy Association raised his head and looked to the left. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Thus, he relayed the problem to Lu Wu. After Lu Wu understood the problem, he asked Bailey to divide the internal space of the Boulder Alchemy Association into 2 areas. They could see each other, but they couldn't communicate with each other. This solved the problem of Niefeng's alchemy being too noisy. After participating in a few alchemy classes together, the Boulder Alchemy Association was traumatized. Even the Boulder was troubled by this. After patiently guiding them a few times, he gave up completely. After seeing the players' reaction, the Boulder nodded in satisfaction. Thus, he shifted his gaze to the players on the right again. He felt a sense of relief when he saw that they were getting more and more familiar with the operation. However, the Boulder didn't let them go. He immediately reported them to Lu Wu, informing him that there was a problem with the 2 players' alchemy process. For other players, the trial space was an independent space. However, for Murphy and little Pomelo, whose souls were one, it wasn't the same. They could still sense each other's presence. How could Murphy and little Pomelo's trickery in the alchemy process escape his eyes? Something was wrong. While everyone was refining the medicine, Niefeng's medicine furnace suddenly let out a deafening bang. The surrounding players who were concentrating on controlling the fire were caught off guard. Their minds were shaken, and a series of explosions rang out. The medicine furnaces exploded like a chain reaction. It was a spectacular scene. After receiving the feedback, Lu Wu expressed that he understood the situation. However, he told the Boulder not to worry about it. During this period of time, the Boulder would carefully guide them on the various techniques of alchemy. Although the players were very talented, with an experienced teacher to guide them, they would obviously be able to avoid a lot of detours. Today's mission is the same as yesterday. Memorize in the morning and practice alchemy in the afternoon. At the same time, I declare that from today onwards, all the alchemy materials will be prepared by yourselves. Of course, you can choose not to prepare them, but all the spiritual materials here will be purchased at the market price. Since he was using his authority to observe, he could see all the players' operations very clearly. He didn't notice it before, but this time, he suddenly realized that there were 2 players who were refining medicine in the same way. As he was watching, the Boulder suddenly felt that something was wrong. However, this was their talent in the soul, so Lu Wu turned a blind eye to it. Wandering among the players, the Boulder would point out the mistakes in their operations from time to time, looking like a rigid and serious teacher. Murphy, I'm so stupid. I couldn't cook tangyuan well in the past, and now I'm also clumsy in alchemy. The Boulder, who had been given the authority of this building, had a 360-degree vision without any blind spots. He could clearly see every player's operation, and it was not difficult for him to supervise 10,000 players at the same time. This made the boulder's heart ache, but he had no other choice. After all the conditions were provided by Lu Wu. If he wanted to improve his realm and convert soul coins into soul power, he would need Lu Wu's authorization. Therefore, he could only reluctantly agree to such an unequal contract. Hence, the boulder observed with rapt attention. At the beginning of the alchemy practice, the boulder randomly picked a book and selected 3 first-tier pill recipes for the players to refine. The entire process was basically done by Murphy, and little Pomelo followed suit. Even the memorization of the alchemy books for the first 3 days of the trial was done by Murphy, and little Pomelo was slacking off. Chapter 290. America, Division 3 Military Base. More than 10 military trucks drove into the military base one after another after being inspected by the soldiers. At that moment, a large number of staff gathered at the empty square of the base. As soon as the trucks arrived, they got busy unloading the goods. At the side, a team of 20 fully armed men lined up neatly and looked at their commander, waiting for his new mission order. The 20 soldiers all had the symbol of a cobra with a bloody mouth sticking out its tongue on their right arm. Although there were not many of them, their identities were not ordinary. They were members of the top 10 special forces in the United States, Cobra. The overall quality of the members of the Cobra squad was extremely strong. They had turned the tide many times during special operations. It could be said that they were the proudest trump card in the entire Division 3 military base. Do you know what those are? The commander pointed at the goods that were being unloaded and looked at the 20 men in front of him. No, sir. The 20 men replied in unison. This is your new mission. Sir, do we need to change our equipment for this mission? Johnson, who was the leader, asked curiously. Yes, you need to change your equipment. Without it, you can't complete the mission. The commander smiled happily, but the others did not think much of it. To them, the equipment they had was enough for any special operations. Changing weapons would not be suitable for them. After all, they were not a bombing team. Their mission was basically to decapitate the leader. They did not need large-scale weapons with high destructive power. After more than 10 metal boxes were sent into the base, the commander waved his hand and the rest of the team followed him into the base. Under their curious gazes, the metal boxes were opened by the staff, revealing the gaming pods inside. They were stunned when they saw the gaming pods. Clearly, they did not understand what they were. Sir, you're not asking us to carry this on the mission, are you? Johnson asked with a strange expression. Of course not. Don't you want to join the X team? I've already reported the information of your materials, and they've passed the audit. Now, the higher-ups will soon send someone down to conduct an audit on your party's comprehensive ability. So, this mission is for your own sake. I need you to play a game, train and strengthen your combat abilities. Play a game. The members of the Cobra squad were dumbfounded. Sir, the game simulator is for the new recruit. Isn't it inappropriate for us to use it for training before the assessment? Jiangxin voiced out the thoughts of his teammates. From their point of view, although the simulation game could assist in training, it was too weak for them who had been through hundreds of battles. It would not have any effect at all. This game is different. You won't be disappointed. Give it a try. The members of the Cobra squad were puzzled, but they didn't object. They waited for the staff to assemble the gaming chamber and fill it with the nutrient solution. After everything was assembled, they took off their combat suits and lay down in the gaming pods with curious expressions on their faces. Just as their bodies were about to be covered by the nutrient fluid, the commander's voice rang out. Remember, don't act alone. Fight in a team and train well. When Johnson heard this, he grinned and made a tactical Roger gesture to the commander. Their vision gradually darkened, and their tensed bodies relaxed as they entered the game. 3 days later, Blue Valley Ruins. The members of the Cobra squad were crouching as they advanced slowly with their guns raised. After entering the game, 5 of them chose melee combat, 5 chose support combat, and 10 chose long-range combat. It could be said that the team's formation was perfect, and they were flexible in terms of damage output and defense. At this point, they finally understood why the commander said that this game could help them train. The cruelty of this place was far beyond their imagination. In the past 3 days, each of them had died no less than 3 times. Such a realistic world shocked them. The various physical phenomena were exactly the same as in reality. Even the parabolic trajectories of bullets and the degree of interference from the outside world were exactly the same as in reality. At first, they thought that this simulation game was the most advanced product of X's research and development. It was only when they met the players that they realized that it was a civilian game. This was truly shocking. They clearly couldn't understand why civilian technology was more advanced than military technology. However, after knowing that it was impossible for them to survive in this world with their individual abilities, they added each other as friends in the game. After some effort, they finally assembled. This instantly increased their overall strength by several times. After all, they had always fought in a team. At this time, the team was slowly advancing in a V-shaped formation. At this time, Johnson, as the leader, suddenly raised his left hand into a fist. The team immediately stopped and pointed their guns forward. They scanned the area in front of them, waiting for the appearance of their prey. The sound of footsteps gradually grew louder. Johnson saw this and made another gesture. Suddenly, the team split into 2 groups and hid on the left and right. At this time, a player holding a lightsaber leaped out from the side alley and appeared in front of them. Behind him was a rotting, tall walking corpse. Seeing the player running toward them, Johnson bent his right arm slightly and pressed his forearm against the ground. Up! The team members nodded. When the player's figure swept past them, Johnson took the initiative to attack. His right arm holding the lightsaber tightened. He leaped out from behind cover and slashed at the leg of the walking corpse. As the walking corpse staggered forward, Johnson's left hand pulled out a short dagger from his waist and stabbed it into the stomach of the walking corpse. Then, he rolled on the ground and moved away. Duh, duh, duh. The concentrated bullets slanted, and the surface of the walking corpse was instantly riddled with holes. It fell to the ground with a loud thud. "Thank you." The player who was being chased saw that the walking corpse had been killed and immediately turned around and shouted. The members of the Cobra Party stood up and greeted the player, but they didn't say anything else as they continued to advance forward. Perhaps to the players, this was a game, but to the Cobra team, this was a test and training for them. The reason why they did not use the team voice in the game and used tactical gestures was for training purposes. After all, in the real world, there was no team voice for them to use. "Hey, don't go forward. Black Lily's hunting ground is in front of you. You will be killed." The players saw that the 20-man team was planning to continue forward and could not help but remind them. "Black Lily." Johnson was puzzled and turned to look at the player. "The one who ranks first on the leaderboard. I advise you not to enter her territory. She will not be courteous with you." "How many people do they have?" Johnson could not help but frown. "1 person. But they are not someone you can handle," the player reminded again in a friendly manner. Johnson and the others could not help but laugh when they heard this. In their opinion, the expert players were only SOSO. Whether it was the control of firearms or melee combat ability, how could they compare to them? Moreover, they had encountered other players in the game several times, and basically they had crushed all of them. It was not a problem for them to fight someone of a higher level. "Thanks." Johnson nodded and then waved his hand again. The team members continued to advance forward. Seeing this, the player could not help but shake his head in regret. He had no hope for their survival at all. Chapter 291. Although they didn't think that Black Lily was a threat to them, the player's warning made them realize that there might be a hidden enemy in the dark. As they moved forward, they kept scanning their surroundings to prevent any ambushes. Although their level would grant them powerful attributes, The members of the Cobra Squad believed that they could completely suppress the Black Lily in terms of technique, no matter how high her level was. At that moment, on top of an 18-story building 500 meters ahead of the squad, Emily was lazily basking in the sun. She even had a cigarette she bought from Bakey in her mouth. After finishing the cigarette, she smirked and turned around to grab the Black Lily's kiss. She looked through the scope and started searching for new prey. Her line of sight swept across the buildings, and the advancing members of the Cobra Squad appeared in her line of sight. Prey. Although they were players, the law of the jungle was that the strong preyed on the weak. Not only was it a battle between players and hell creatures, but it was also a battle between players. At that moment, Emily was completely immersed in it. This was her hunting territory, so she naturally wouldn't go easy on the intruders. She started moving her gun around the group of players, looking for a target to kill first. Under normal circumstances, a sniper would choose to kill the long-range attackers first to reduce the pressure during the battle. However, Emily had absolute confidence in her skills. She chose to shoot the warriors that might come close to her first. Squinting her left eye, she pressed her index finger on the trigger and pulled it slowly. Bang! The charged bullet left a blue trail in the air, accurately hitting the head of one of the Cobra Squad members. Player Rock has been killed by you. Critical damage. At the same time, a row of red numbers appeared above the player's head. 1823 Rock's sudden death shocked the Cobra Squad. However, they had a strong sense of combat. Realizing that there was a sniper, they immediately spread out and looked for cover. Looking at the wound on the mech, Johnson's face darkened. He then made a series of hand signals. There's a sniper at 2 o'clock. Cover our advance. The teammates nodded and began to spread out. Knowing that the sniper was staring at them, they didn't show themselves. Instead, they began to change their positions. After the team members dispersed, Johnson clenched his fist, attack. The 10 members who had also switched their weapons to sniper rifles appeared at the same time. They pointed their muzzles in the 2 o'clock direction and began to shoot, covering the advance of Johnson and the others. Johnson immediately led the 3 melee fighters and 3 support fighters toward the abandoned vehicle in front of them. After Johnson and the others dodged, the 10 snipers crouched down at the same time. Their idea was undoubtedly correct. They covered Johnson and the others with their shooting, but what puzzled them was that the sniper at 2 o'clock had disappeared. Realizing that the enemy snipers might have changed positions, the 10 snipers at the back began to communicate through hand signals. In the end, they decided to split into teams of 2 and lock down an area for the next wave of cover fire. After receiving another order from Johnson to cover them, the 10 of them revealed themselves at the same time and started shooting. Bang! 1923 A line of bloody text appeared. It was still a critical hit with double damage, and the Cobra member died instantly. However, this also allowed the Cobra snipers to lock onto Emily's position again. Taking advantage of the fact that she had just finished shooting and had yet to reload her second bullet, all 9 of them fired simultaneously. However, Emily had already lowered her head. Hugging her sniper rifle, she rolled on the ground and moved to the right. Gotcha! She pulled the bolt and a blue shell flew out of the chamber. The bullet was reloaded. This time, Emily raised her head, aimed and fired without hesitation. Bang! A crimson line of bloody text appeared. Another sniper had been killed in an instant. At that moment, the Cobra members' expressions darkened. They were one of the most elite special forces in the United States. Now, 3 of them had been killed by a single player. This would definitely be the biggest joke in the world if word got out. Realizing that their opponent was also an expert sniper, the remaining 8 people at the back began to change positions again. After all, fixed-point shooting was too easy to lock onto. This time they were extra serious. Moreover, they didn't believe that their professional sniping skills would lose to a player. Once they were ready, Johnson and the other warriors pounced towards the next bunker. The 8 snipers at the back peeked out at the same time, each locking onto a general area. With the top of the tall building as their target, they pulled the trigger. This time, Emily still didn't peek out. However, just as they were about to crouch down, Emily heard the gunshots and stood up abruptly. She raised her gun and fired. Bang! A critical hit. Crouching down again, Emily's lips curled up, and her eyes shone with excitement. She took out a cigarette and lit it up. She took a deep breath and exhaled a cloud of smoke. Her opponent was an expert, an absolute expert. Seeing their combat style, Emily had already realized this. However, this kind of competition was more interesting to her. Caressing the blossoming and wilting lily on the butt of her gun, she felt herself getting more and more excited. It was as if Emily was born to be a sniper. The 2 steps of aiming and shooting required time to accurately hit the target, but she did it all in one go. It was as if she had pulled the trigger in the middle of aiming, and the moment the bullet left the chamber, the muzzle was already on the target. In this aspect, she was far better than the Cobra Squad's snipers. They couldn't match Emily's speed at all. Although it wasn't difficult for them to do so, they couldn't guarantee the accuracy of their shot. Emily's sniping skills were all over the place, coupled with her ruthless shooting. Emily kept delivering the kiss of death to the Cobra Squad snipers, completely destroying the pride in the hearts of the Cobra Squad members. In the end, as the team leader, Johnson finally couldn't take it anymore and began to command the battle in the team chat. This kind of compromise undoubtedly proved how terrifying Emily was. Everyone in the Cobra Squad felt troubled. "Boss, he's too strong." After another member was killed by a critical hit, there were only 3 snipers left in the rear. In the face of such a strong opponent, even the arrogant Cobra Squad had to admit that this sniper was much stronger than them. 1 against 20, but they were the ones at a disadvantage. They had only felt this kind of pressure when they were in a friendly match against the most mysterious Team X in America. Was she really just a player? They began to doubt it. However, the battle had to continue. After the team chat was activated, the communication between the members became smoother, and the process of covering fire became smoother. The most depressed in this battle were undoubtedly the members who had chosen the auxiliary mechs. They had nano-repair robots that could help their teammates recover and increase their damage. However, their opponent was always a headshot, killing them instantly. They couldn't even help their teammates recover even if they wanted to. However, if they chose to help, their long-range abilities were definitely not as good as the rechargeable mech. They didn't even have a sniper rifle, so they couldn't do much at such a long distance. In the end, the Cobra Squad discussed and decided to let the members who had chosen the auxiliary mechs act as live targets to attract the enemy's firepower. They would then let the remaining 3 snipers finish off Emily on the tall building. After changing their strategy again and again, Emily's dominance in sniping had left the Cobra Squad at their wits' end. However, they had still underestimated Emily, who was almost godlike in sniping. When the auxiliary mech warrior stood up, the expected shot did not happen. Emily, who was still aiming, waved at the warrior from afar, as if greeting him. "Don't get up!" the auxiliary mech warrior roared. However, the sniper behind him had already raised his gun and was already aiming. There was no time for him to crouch down. Bang! The bullets pierced through the mechs and heads of the 2 people, and blood splattered everywhere. Double kill. Double hit damage. Chapter 292. This game wasn't developed by our country, so we can't investigate its internal data. The commander shrugged helplessly. Sniping information note. In 2318, she had a sniping contest with the X-Unit, fireman, who was protecting the important members of the parliament. Mission status. Her protector was killed, and fireman was killed in action. Lu Wu used the artifact to connect with number 1, sending Emily's coordinates and a picture of her character into his mind. Although he couldn't confirm if this person was a member of the organization, it was the same as the law of the Black Forest. If he didn't strike first, he would most likely perish. All the sniping conditions in the game were the same as in reality. Chapter 293. It was raining heavily during the Qingming festival. This was one of the 4 traditional festivals in Qi Dragon over the years. Visiting graves, offering sacrifices, and cherishing the memory of their ancestors were what the people of Qi Dragon had to do during this festival. In the morning, compared to the other 2 regions, the number of players in Beiki had decreased significantly. Most of them had gone out to worship their ancestors or go for an outing. In the afternoon, after the players returned from worshipping their ancestors, Lu Wu released the announcement for the Qingming Festival. Game notification. Qingming Festival Lonely Grave Sacrifice Trailer. Description: between 8 p.m. and 12 p.m., the lonely graves of the warriors who have passed away in the river of history will be refreshed all over Beiki. Players can use an unlimited number of tributes to sweep the lonely graves during the mission period. Once the sacrifice is completed, they will receive the mission item, Lonely Soul's Gift. Note: the same lonely grave can only be swept once. Each lonely grave can only be swept by 1,000 players at most. Once the limit is reached, the lonely grave will disappear. Reward: Lonely Soul's Gift X1 can be exchanged for 20 soul coins. Lonely Soul's Gift X5 can be exchanged for a level 100 blue equipment, optional. Lonely Soul's Gift X20 can be exchanged for a level 100 purple equipment, optional. Lonely Soul's Gift X50 can be exchanged for 5 level 3 spirit cleansing pills. Each pill can permanently increase endurance by 8 points. Lonely Soul's Gift X100 can be exchanged for the special title, Wandering Comforter, 10 free teleportations per day. Special reward? Need to explore during the mission. Battle Online's activities always filled the players with anticipation. The players were very excited when they saw the announcement for the Qingming Festival because the stingy evildoer group was going to bleed again. Lu Wu had also meticulously prepared for this event. It was not as simple as using artifacts to simulate the scene like in the past. For this event, Lu Wu had spent a total of nearly 10 million soul coins. With the help of Bailey, he had materialized all the famous graves of the heroic spirits in Beiki since ancient times. Lu Wu had also temporarily released the many heroic spirits in the Hall of Heroic Spirit. In other words, this was a real grave-sweeping event and not a fake mission. The so-called special reward was also related to the heroic spirits that had passed away for a long time. However, it was still up to the players to obtain the opportunity. Although the game developers did not say what the special reward was, the players were still full of anticipation. After all, the game developers had never disappointed them, except on April Fool's Day. However, while the Beiki players were discussing the event, the players from the European server and Naraka server could no longer sit still. One after another, they flooded the official website of the local server. Forum: Star Universe, Europe. I strongly protest. Why does the original server always organize events? Can't we compete happily? The evildoer group is too biased. I strongly request that the European server also have this event. No, I want to make up for the previous events. Jason, Europe protest +1. Isn't my European server their biological child? Start the event. Send me the rewards. Reinhardt, Europe, it's a fair competition. The original server is already so strong, and they're still organizing events. Please weaken the attributes of the local server players and strengthen the attributes of the European server players. Seer, hell, that's enough. The players of the Great Naraka server are in dire straits. Please move around and strengthen yourselves. Prince Charming 123, NA, you 2 servers sure are taking it easy, but our NA server is playing survival through Doomsday. I've died almost 100 times since the server opened. This game's difficulty is driving me crazy. Please strengthen the NA players. Weaken the European server and the original server. Crayon_Shinchan. Look, a group of flustered and exasperated foreign server players are protesting. You're right, the original server is the real sun. Laughing emoji. Shueli _ the strongest. That's enough, you guys. You don't even know what the Qingming festival is, and you still want to organize an event. Stop it, or else we won't be merciful during the next server war. Laughing emoji. Watermelon _ taro. Stop crying. Let's talk about the European server first. With the evil king, the boss of the Ghost Emperor realm, taking care of them, life is very comfortable. However, our Baki doesn't even have a Ghost Emperor realm expert. Are we crying? Laughing emoji. Let's talk about the Naraka server. Your server is a combination of many states. Let's not talk about the large number of people. Don't you know how advantageous your growth system is in the early stages? Our Baki server is not so comfortable when it opens. As for the difference in strength that you guys mentioned, who can we blame for having so many cheats in our server? This is our own strength, okay? Self-righteous emoji. It has nothing to do with the officials. So, finally, I want to say that the Genius Group is asking for the Baki players' attributes to be strengthened. Life is too miserable, we can't live on anymore. Assassin _ Creed replied to Watermelon _ Taro. Well said. Our Baki players aren't crying. Why are you crying? Go away, we'll be the first to cry. Because of the event, the three servers started to act pitiful one after another. They talked about how tough the conditions in their own servers were, hoping that the Genius Group would take it seriously. Especially the Baki players. Although they knew that they were the strongest among the three servers, they also actively acted pitiful like the other two servers. From their point of view, crying was the right thing to do. It would make the Genius Group think that they were miserable, and maybe they would be strengthened. Therefore, the players of the three servers each opened a thread and began to summarize the miserable conditions of their own servers. Then, they crazily refreshed the thread and pinned it at the top, hoping that the officials would see it. Lu Wu blushed with shame as they took turns to cry. Especially the Baki players, Lu Wu had nothing to say to them. Their ability to act pitiful was really impressive. If one did not have a deep understanding of them, an outsider might really think that the current situation of the Baki players was dire after reading their summary thread. In the end, Lu Wu simply ignored their pitiful comment. No matter how much you complain, I will not budge. Want to strengthen? That's impossible. The most important thing is to earn more soul coins for me. When it was 8 o'clock in the evening, there were no players in the Mansion of the Dead except for the NPCs wandering around. At this time, a game notification appeared. Server announcement. The tomb sweeping event has officially started. The unlimited use of the tribute item has been sent to the player's personal channel. During the event, the location of the tomb will change every 30 minutes. Please search for it yourself. The event had officially started. The players who were already well prepared started to run around the land of Baki, looking for the tomb. Beside the Lioli coast, who he was holding a compass and waiting there. Behind him stood more than 20 figures. Compared to they looked dull, like walking corpses. At this moment, he looked completely different from before. The childishness and gangster-like look on his face was gone, replaced by a sense of maturity and steadiness. The 23 people sacrificed their lives to save him, which touched he deeply. After that battle, he chose to refine the 23 people into zombie spirit. Due to the limitations of his own ability, the strength of the 23 people was only at the Ghost General stage, and they had lost their consciousness. However, the zombie Forge Master had the ability to summon spirit. He believed that as his strength grew stronger, he would be able to wake them up one day. Moreover, he swore that he would personally lead them to kill Yuanxiu, using his blood as a sacrifice for the 23 people who risked their lives to save him. The reason why he returned to Baki this time was to participate in the Tomb Sweeping Festival event. Because every event had an opportunity to improve his strength, he did not want to miss it. The reason why he came to the Liuli coast was that he had a guess after reading the event announcement. While waiting, the compass suddenly lit up with a red light. Then, a blood-colored tomb appeared on the coast. Cha Na's tomb. Lonely grave message. Even though there are thousands of enemies, Cha Na has come forward step by step from a lowly soldier. Cha Na has proven his ability to the king of Baiki with his fearless bravery in every battle. Liu Li, who was granted a fief, is a general of Baiki. He is a heroic spirit. Refresh time. 29 minutes 48 seconds. Worship count. 500 times. Each player is limited to 1 time. Special reward? Fate. Looking at Cha Na's lonely tomb, who he suddenly smiled. He knew that his guess was right. Then, he turned his head to look at Cha Na's zombie spirit. Thinking of bringing Cha Na's zombie spirit to worship Cha Na's lonely tomb, he felt that it was inappropriate. After thinking for a while, he took out the tributes and placed them in front of Cha Na's lonely tomb. He waited for the 1-minute ritual to be worshipped. Just then, the shadow of Cha Na in armor appeared. At this moment, he seemed to see the scene of Cha Na fighting a bloody battle on the battlefield. The sound of fighting echoed in his ears. I am Cha Na. I will definitely become famous one day. In the scene, the shadow of Cha Na waved his fist toward the sky. His eyes were filled with determination and perseverance. Although he knew that it was just an NPC, he could still feel the image of a real person. He sighed. As the tributes burned, he slowly bowed toward Cha Na. Brother Cha Na, I'm sorry. I stole your head. After straightening his body again, Hui's eyes flashed with a hint of determination. But don't worry, Cha Na. Hui will definitely become the strongest in the future. I will not bring shame to your bravery when you were alive. As if he had heard Hui's reply, the shadow of Cha Na on the lonely tomb suddenly burst into flames. Then, the shadow swung its right fist toward Hui. Seeing this, Hui did not make any strange movements. He just stood there quietly. The burning fist stopped at the tip of Hui's nose. After a short confrontation, the shadow of Cha Na suddenly retracted its fist. At this moment, Hui thought he could hear Cha Na's hysterical laughter. Then, something happened that surprised Hui. The burning shadow of Cha Na suddenly detached itself from the lonely tomb and jumped into the body of Cha Na's zombie spirit. Server announcement. Congratulations to player Hui for obtaining the recognition of Cha Na's remnant soul during the sacrifice of Cha Na's tomb. He has triggered an opportunity and obtained Cha Na's spirit incomplete. This announcement sent the players into a frenzy. They did not expect the lonely tomb to be the tomb of a warrior who had died in the game. Suddenly, a large number of players started rushing toward Liuli Coast. Each of them ran as fast as they could, afraid of missing the opportunity. After all, each tomb could only be swept 500 times. Looking at the zombie spirit of Cha Na, whose eyes gradually lit up, Hui was stunned. Cha Na's zombie spirit, half-step Ghost King realm. Zombie spirit information, a zombie spirit personally refined by player Hui. A total of 3 bodies were integrated, namely Cha Na's head, Peak Ghost General, Mu Ti's remnant body, Late Ghost General, and Daybreak Ho, Mid Ghost King realm. Zombie spirit status. Under the stimulation of Cha Na's remnant soul, Cha Na's zombie spirit has been upgraded. It has developed basic spiritual intelligence and advanced to half-step Ghost King realm. It has developed spiritual intelligence. Hui did not expect that he would be recognized by Cha Na's remnant soul with just a simple sweep of the tomb, triggering the opportunity. After taking a glance at Instant's tomb, Hui took a deep breath and bowed once again. I will keep my promise. Even if you were once my enemy, we are now comrades. Cha Na's tomb, which had lost its remnant soul, did not respond this time. The tributes below had been burned to ashes, and the quest completion notification appeared. Completed the sweep of Cha Na's tomb. Quest item Gift of the Lonely Soul obtained. After taking another deep look at Cha Na's tomb, Hui took out the compass, turned around, and left. After this promise, who he felt that the burden on his shoulders had become heavier. However, he did not regret it, because from now on, he wanted to be the strongest. After who he left, a large number of players arrived one after another. However, the information on Cha Na's tomb had changed. The question mark in the column for the special reward had disappeared. It was replaced by the person who obtained the opportunity, who he. Although the players who came later felt that it was a pity, they continued to sweep the tomb of their former enemy. Lu Wu had undoubtedly put in a lot of effort into this event. Apart from the ones in the Hall of Valiant Spirits, the other graves of the valiant spirits that were scattered all over Beiki were summoned by him by burning soul coins. As for whether the opportunity could be grasped, it all depended on whether the players could obtain the recognition of the valiant spirits during the sweep. However, this Tomb Sweeping Day event was undoubtedly a success. The players were very involved in the quest, and there were also players who obtained various opportunities, some strong and some weak. However, Lu Wu was disappointed that none of the players obtained the inheritance of the valiant spirits. After all, some of these valiant spirits were once powerhouses of the Ghost Emperor realm. It was extremely difficult to obtain their recognition. Even Lu Wu could not provide any help. Everything depended on the player's own effort. The word opportunity was the core of this event. Whether one could obtain the recognition of the valiant spirits was a very vague concept. Perhaps it was like what happened to who only needed to say something inadvertently to resonate with the remnant soul of the valiant spirits and obtain their recognition. Or even if the valiant spirits felt that they were fated, the players did not need to do anything before they took the initiative to grant the opportunity. Even so, the players did not know that after knowing that there was a reward for the opportunity, they became extremely devout when they swept the graves. Every one of them wanted to obtain the recognition of the valiant spirits and obtain the opportunity. There was even a silly player who knelt in front of a valiant spirit's grave that he did not even know and wailed loudly, just to move the owner of the grave and grant him the opportunity. During this period, the players did all kinds of tricks. Even Lu Wu, who was observing from behind the scenes, felt embarrassed for them. Chapter 294. The Tomb Sweeping Day event officially came to an end at midnight. During the event, the players' imaginative actions were truly hilarious. Lu Wu felt extremely embarrassed by the series of creative actions that they performed in order to gain the recognition of the heroic spirits, such as crying at their graves, acknowledging them as godfathers, acknowledging them as masters, and becoming sworn brothers. Although these actions did not allow the players to obtain the inheritance of the heroic spirits, some of the heroic spirits really fell for it, allowing the players to reap many different opportunities, such as being taught a special skill or giving away a part of the remnant of their soul. There was even a player who successfully acknowledged a heroic spirit as his godfather and obtained the coordinates of the treasure that the heroic spirit buried in Beiki when he was still alive. The subsequent player also excavated the treasure vault through a live stream. In the end, he obtained a warehouse full of spiritual materials and spiritual ores, which made the other players very envious. After the event officially ended, the players couldn't help but look forward to the next event. At the same time, Lu Wu also received feedback from Number 1, who was in America. Mission completed successfully. This time, Number 1 did not act immediately after finding Number 7, who had kidnapped Emily. Instead, he followed him all the way to the Jieda Technologies underground laboratory in America. Once again, he relied on his powerful body that was modified by Bailey to destroy the entire human laboratory with his own strength and rescue Emily from it. Undoubtedly, Number 1's strength completely shocked Emily. It made her realize that physical strength could actually withstand bullets and even tear steel plates with bare hand. This kind of combat power that erupted with physical strength was wild and oppressive. While Emily was subdued, she also felt a desire to worship him from the bottom of her heart. The scene of a hero saving a damsel in distress was useful everywhere. Although Emily had been famous in the world of assassins for a long time, She was still a young girl who had just reached the age of 20. It was inevitable that her heart would palpitate when she was saved from despair. However, Number 1 did not have such thoughts. As he brought Emily to a safe area, he directly told Emily that he no longer had his lower body. He also told Emily not to ask questions like his name or age, as it was annoying to hear. Number 1's words cast a shadow over Emily's heart. Could it be that a man must not have his lower body if he wanted to become stronger? Thinking of Number 7 and the man in front of her, Emily felt a chill in her heart. The next day, the players' lives were back on track. At this moment, Lu Wu was leisurely eating spiritual fruits and drinking spiritual tea brewed from the spiritual spring. At the same time, his eyes were glued to the official forum, reading the daily discussions of the players. While browsing, the content of a post caught his attention. It was because of the anti-addiction setting that Lu Wu had added in the game. Please remove the anti-addiction setting. Don't old aunties from 2006 have human rights? I strongly protest. I want to play games. Author, Pink Rabbit tweet content. I'm 13 years old, in the 3rd year of junior high school. I can be considered half an adult. I love playing games and accidentally came across Battle Online. As a result, I'm completely addicted to it. However, what the hell is this 5 hours of anti-addiction? What era are we in now? Why do you still have anti-addiction settings? Don't you know that we young people are the main force of this game? Protest. Protest. At the bottom of the post, there were many young players who agreed with it and adult players who despised it. Divine Knife Stream. I agree with the original poster. I've been wanting to say this for a long time. Why can't we minors play the game for 24 hours? We need human rights too, like emoji. Old ancestor of the North faction. The original poster is right. Although we are minors, our world needs to be fair. We can't discriminate. 5 hours is too short. Please change it, like emoji. Spirit of the White Snake. Yes, yes. The original poster is the same as me. We were born in 2006. We are both old aunties, but we can't pass the anti-addiction setting, crying emoji. Watermelon_Taro replied to Spirit of the White Snake. Oh my god, you're only 13 years old and you're already calling yourself an old auntie? Then what was I in 1998? Old uncle? Assassin_Creed. Then I'm probably an old grandpa in 94. Laughing emoji, toe-scratching man. Then I'm an old ancestor in 89. Laughing emoji, angler. Then what was I in 82? Crayon_Shinchan replied to angler. You're a bottle of Lafite. Laughing emoji, cultivating_longevity. I'm over 100 years old. According to everyone, I'm probably a terracotta soldier. Invincible_loneliness replied to cultivating_longevity. Ha ha ha, the terracotta soldier metaphor is awesome. Laughing emoji. The players were generally divided into 2 factions regarding the anti-addiction setting. On one side were the underage players who hoped that the officials would improve the anti-addiction setting or even remove it. On the other side were the adult players who hoped to strengthen the anti-addiction setting by changing the 5-hour time limit to 2 hours so that the flowers of the motherland could study hard and stop being addicted to the game. After reading their comments, Lu Wu suddenly thought of his past self. When he was young, he was also a gamer. At that time, he hated the anti-addiction setting the most because he could not enjoy the game to his heart's content. However, as he grew older, he hoped that the anti-addiction setting would be more complete. It would be best if it could stop the primary school students from playing the game because he was already an adult at that time. At this moment, what the underage players were thinking about was exactly what Lu Wu had hoped for when he was young. Lu Wu could empathize with them. Therefore, after careful consideration, Lu Wu decided to modify the anti-addiction setting. Of course, modifying did not mean removing it. After discussing with Bailey, Lu Wu decided to officially add a learning function to the anti-addiction setting. After the anti-addiction setting was successfully implemented, the underage players would not be forced to quit the game after 5 hours of playing the game. Instead, they would be presented with a choice panel. The first option was to be sent to the trial space to review the learning materials corresponding to their age. After studying for an hour and completing the test papers randomly assigned by the system, they would be given an additional 3 hours of game time. If they failed the test, they would have to study for another hour. The second option was to quit the game. Lu Wu had only decided to implement this plan after careful consideration. The artifact also had a soul detection function. It could easily identify the age of the underage players and select the corresponding learning materials from the database. After all, Lu Wu wanted to make the player army extremely powerful. Naturally, he understood that the underage players would be one of his future development forces and the foundation for sustainable development. Therefore, Lu Wu wanted them to be completely addicted to the game. The operation of this anti-addiction setting was not only for the underage players, but also for himself. After all, the younger generation was the source of motivation for sustainable development. Once the new anti-addiction setting was implemented, it received a great response from the players. First, it was the adult players. Many of them had children who were still in school. Naturally, they were all in favor of this anti-addiction setting that could help with learning. On the other hand, the underage players were a little disgusted by the new anti-addiction setting. After all, learning and gaming were opposites in their eyes. However, the attitude of the battle developers had always been overbearing. After the protests of the primary school students were futile, most of the underage players reluctantly chose to enter the learning space and began to review seriously. However, when they passed the learning questions and returned to the game, it smells good. Chapter 295. Recently, the Bakey players encountered 2 problems that gave them headache. First was the land of the 9 luminaries in the west. After the players' continuous plundering, His Excellency the 9 luminaries finally lost his patience and started to restrain the players' behavior. After that, the plundering became less smooth. Moreover, the messengers of the 9 luminaries came again to recommend a new king of Bakey. Of course, the players did not agree to this request. However, the messengers told them to reconsider, or else Bakey and the land of the 9 luminaries would definitely go to war in the future. Although they did not completely reject the messengers, the players knew clearly that this was just a delaying tactic. The war would come sooner or later. Although the players were worried about it, they were never afraid. At least, the players were clear about one thing. No matter what, they would conquer the land of the 9 luminaries sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. Another problem came from the underworld sea in the east. Recently, the Death Clan had stopped attacking. Since the players had fewer places to farm monsters, they naturally took the initiative to look for it in the Void Ocean. However, what surprised them was that the Death Clan in the Void Ocean had also disappeared. In order to find out the reason, many players went to the Kuelong Ocean to look for the Sea King and discuss with him what he meant. After going to the Kuelong Ocean, the players soon found out the reason. It was because the Mu-Te Empire had started a war with the surrounding forces. The Death Clan left the Void Ocean because the Sea King was in dire need of manpower due to the war. After careful investigation, the players found out that the cause of this war was related to the forces of Langia Island that fought with them during the Sea King's founding ceremony. With the power of Langia Island alone, it was impossible to compete with the Sea King's Mu-Te Sea Nation. However, Langia Island had been in the Kuelong Ocean for many years and knew many forces. This time, the owner of Langia Island personally went around to spread a message to all the forces in the Kuelong Ocean. If the Sea King really dominated the Kuelong Ocean, it would affect the status and territorial income of all the forces in the Kuelong Ocean. With the Sea King's character, he would never give in to any forces. The leaders of the various forces had also considered this point. Initially, they did not intend to intervene in the confrontation between Langia Island and the Sea King. After all, the bird that pokes its head out will be shot, and they were not that foolish to risk the lives of their entire clan to compete. However, the owner of Langia Island gave them a temptation that they could not refuse. Langia Island would not take a single cent of the Mu-Te Sea Nation's territory and resources after uniting all the forces in the Kuelong Ocean to eliminate them. The Mu-Te Sea Nation currently occupied more than 35% of the entire Kuelong Ocean's resources. This condition was undoubtedly extremely tempting. Moreover, there was another benefit. After destroying the Mu-Te Sea Nation, the Kuelong Ocean would return to the balance of all the forces restraining each other. The existence of the Mu-Te Sea Nation would lead to endless wars. The combination of these 2 points made all the forces tempted. Thus, a great war broke out. Even the Sea King didn't expect that all the forces in the Kuelong Ocean would unite to fight against him. Under such circumstances, the Sea King had no choice but to continuously pull the Death Clan from the Void Ocean to the Kuelong Ocean as cannon fodder in the battle. However, the Mu-Te Sea Nation was undoubtedly at a disadvantage against the allied army of the entire Kuelong Ocean. After knowing the situation, the players slammed the table and stood up one by one. The Sea King was their leak that they had been raising for a long time. Now that it was about to be eaten by an external force, the players couldn't stand it anymore. To the players, the current situation was akin to pests appearing on the leek during its growth. As old farmers, they naturally had to eliminate the pests so that the leek could continue to grow. Therefore, after a discussion among the players, a large number of Spectre warships gathered at the Liuli Ocean and were ready to go out to sea to wreak havoc. At the same time, the report written by the commander of the 5th Military Zone of the United States was approved by the higher-up. Battle Online was officially promoted to the entire United States Army. Before this, they had a deep understanding of Battle Online and confirmed that dying in the game would not cause mental damage to the players. They had also conducted a comprehensive operation and testing of the Black Sea Corporation's gaming pod. After these 2 points were confirmed, it was naturally not a problem to promote the game to the entire United States Army. Moreover, with the game's degree of realism, it was completely possible to train the soldiers without any casualties. Moreover, it could save the ammunition and resources that were consumed during the training. In the long run, this plan was undoubtedly feasible and could help the military save a lot of money. For this reason, they had specially found Lu Wu's phone number through various channels, planning to purchase Battle Online and the virtual technology behind it at a high price. Lu Wu directly rejected this proposal. There was not even anything to discuss. Lu Wu's attitude undoubtedly infuriated the United States Army. However, they could not locate Lu Wu at all. In fact, they could not even find out who was the person behind Battle Online from the current information they had. Feeling helpless about this, the United States Army proposed a second plan: cooperation. This time, they hoped that Battle Online could develop a brand new virtual world for them, one that was devoid of other players and only used for military training. As for the background, it could be exactly the same as the one in Naraka. The only requirement was that it was completely independent and not connected to the outside world. Lu Wu still rejected this proposal. What a joke, the land of Naraka actually existed. Even if Lu Wu wanted to, he did not have the ability and energy to make an exact replica of it. After the failure of the negotiation, the United States Army was completely helpless. In the end, they decided to let the soldiers try out the effect in Naraka, where there were players. If the effect was significant, then they would find a chance to talk to Lu Wu. The Black Sea Technology Company was the happiest about this move of the United States Army because they had received a large number of orders from the military. Although Lu Wu would also get a 5% commission, he did not care about the money at all. What he cared about was the soldiers of the United States Army. This was because as long as they entered the game with a gaming pod, they would be Lu Wu's men, the kind that could not escape even if they died. Even Lu Wu did not expect the United States Army to make such a decision. While Lu Wu was in a daze, the entire United States Army was marked by the artifact's soul and became his subordinate. Because of this, the strength of the players in Naraka skyrocketed. After officially entering the game, the soldiers of the United States Army were undoubtedly arrogant. In their opinion, with their participation in the game, the monsters in Naraka would definitely be defeated. However, on the first day after the army entered the game, the soldiers of the United States Army were beaten by the monsters in Naraka. The first military base that was originally planned to be built in the Blue Valley ruins was destroyed by the endless number of monsters in less than half a day. Death, resurrection. Death, resurrection. Even if the United States Army was invincible in Aquamarine Planet, it was not worth mentioning in the face of the monsters in Naraka who completely crushed them in terms of attributes. At this moment, they had no other choice but to level up like the players and fight against the monsters by increasing their attribute. However, the training effect of the soldiers was indeed a pleasant surprise to the higher-ups of the United States Army. Although they could not build a military base in the land of Naraka to expand their territory, they immediately changed their strategy and began to build small strongholds in the Blue Valley ruins. They even recruited the strength of the players to expand their territory. Seeing the United States Army racking their brains to conquer the Blue Valley ruins in the land of Naraka, Lu Wu could not help but laugh. Initially, he was troubled by the disadvantage of the players in Naraka. After all, the death rate in Naraka was too high. The difficulty was on a completely different level compared to Beiki and Sangshu. The players here were almost suffering from depression, and it was normal for them to die 3 to 4 times a day. In the end, the United States Army joined the battle and even took the initiative to help Lu Wu expand his territory. With their help, the daily soul coin production in Naraka skyrocketed. Lu Wu could not help but smile like an old farmer. Chapter 296. Underworld Sea, Void Ocean. Above the Void Ocean, a huge fleet of players consisting of hundreds of thousands of Spectre warships and millions of Spectre ships was slowly advancing toward the Kuelong Ocean. In order to protect the popular growth-type boss, the Sea King, many guilds of Beiki jointly issued an assembly order to the players. A large number of players responded to the call and planned to help the Sea King win this battle. The players were ferocious and were all prepared for a protracted war. When this huge fleet entered the Kuelong Ocean and was about to sail toward Xinmo Island, countless black shadows suddenly emerged from the water. Huge ferocious-looking sea beasts broke out of the water and formed a huge army of sea beasts, blocking the players' fleet. Welcome to the Kuelong Ocean, distinguished guests from afar. Just when the players thought a battle was about to break out, a huge white-shelled turtle emerged from the bottom of the water. The one who spoke was an old man with white hair and a beard standing on the back of the turtle. This person had a sage-like demeanor, and he held a 9-segmented cane in his hand. He had a benevolent expression on his face, and he gave off a sense of familiarity. However, the players had the ability to analyze, so they immediately recognized this person's identity and became vigilant. Langya Ghost King Peak. Character details. The owner of Langya Island, one of the 3 top forces in the Kuelong Ocean. He was originally the guardian divine beast of the Broken Wave Palace in the Kuelong Ocean. He betrayed the Broken Wave Palace under the temptation of the enemy's benefits and revealed many of the Broken Wave Palace's secrets against the enemy, causing the fall of the Broken Wave Palace. After that, he betrayed the forces he was loyal to several times and finally built Langya Island step by step with the resources he accumulated. Character status. Normal. The players sighed when they saw Langya's information. They didn't expect this amiable-looking old man to be a cunning old fox who liked to play dirty. They couldn't help but feel ashamed of him. Therefore, in the players' opinion, Langya must have come with bad intentions, so they didn't treat him nicely. Seeing that the players had all the cannons on the warships aimed at him, Langya looked a little embarrassed. He spoke again. Distinguished guests, welcome to the Kuelong Ocean. Can we sit down and talk if there's any misunderstanding between us? Langya was still a little worried about the hostile attitude of the players. After the Sea King's nation-building ceremony, the existence of the players had already spread throughout the Kuelong Ocean. Hence, Langya naturally knew about the existence of this force. After the war with the Sea King, Langya was most worried about this mysterious force with an extremely powerful background. Now that they had completely suppressed the Sea King, victory would come sooner or later if this trend continued. However, the unstable factor was the players. They could not guarantee that this force that seemed to have a close relationship with the Sea King would help the Sea King. However, if the players were really willing to help the Sea King fight against them, then the victory that they could have won would be uncertain. Hence, Langya wanted to rope them in. He had even made up his mind that he was willing to use 15% of the Sea King's territory's resources to negotiate with the players. His conditions were also very simple. As long as the player forces did not intervene, they would not even need to participate in the battle against the Sea King. This condition was extremely tempting, but Langya wasn't confident at the moment. Langya felt that he had underestimated the strength of this force when he saw the fleet that was made up of millions of warships. At the same time, he did not want to become enemies with the player forces. What do you want to talk about? Guyu looked at Langya and asked on the deck of the leading Myth Realm warship. I think we can't only be enemies. Perhaps we can become friends. In order to show our sincerity, I have specially prepared a generous gift for our distinguished guests. Langya raised his hand and pointed at the giant tortoise below him. Leader, can you come down for a chat? Upon hearing this, the players looked at each other and the few guild leaders in the channel began to discuss. They were not sure what Langya was up to. After looking at Langya's interface, they did not have a good impression of Langya. They felt that he was not trustworthy at all. After a round of discussion, the leaders of the other guilds decided to bring a few people down to see what Langya was up to. Langya was stunned when he saw a few figures jumping down from the warship. He then looked at Guyu. In his opinion, Guyu was the leader of this force. He did not know why he brought so many people. Don't misunderstand, I'm just one of the leaders, Guyu said immediately after stepping on the back of the giant tortoise. Upon hearing this, Langya nodded in realization. Lu Chai, Guyu, Wu Gui, Yishuer, Lu Zhan, Yin Xiaoqi, and other guild leaders arrived. Langya used his spiritual power to condense a conference table on the back of the giant tortoise for everyone to sit down. Langya, what do you want to talk about? Also, what's the generous gift you mentioned? Guyu yawned while supporting his head with one hand. Langya nodded after taking a glance at everyone present. I'd like to ask everyone, what's your relationship with the Sea King? Upon hearing this, the few people present had a complicated look on their faces. They did not know how to say it. After all, the Sea King lost his position as the overlord of the Void Ocean because of them. Otherwise, why would he come to the Kuelong Ocean to fight for sea power? Moreover, the Sea King lost his elder brother in the Battle of Baki because of this. All these grudges added up could be considered as irreconcilable. Therefore, facing this question, everyone did not know how to answer for a while. It's all right, Wu Gui said. Upon hearing this, the guild leaders present and the players who were eavesdropping in the live channel were all embarrassed. However, Langya seemed to be extremely excited as this news was exactly what he wanted to hear. Everyone, now let me talk about the generous gift I've prepared for you. As Langya spoke, he waved his hand behind him. Suddenly, the thousands of sea monsters in the front row opened their mouths, revealing the spiritual materials and treasures unique to the Kuelong Ocean stored inside. All these are for us? Guyu was a little surprised. That's right, all these treasures are for you, but I have a condition. Langya squinted his eyes as he spoke. Guyu and the others looked at each other. They already knew what Langya was going to say, but they still said, "Lord Langya, just say what you want to say. As long as you players don't participate in this battle, I and the other forces in the Kuelong Ocean are not only willing to offer you treasures and spiritual materials, we're even willing to give you 15% of the resources produced by the Sea King's territory every year." Langya's meaning was very clear. He did not want the players to participate in the battle. If it was an ordinary force, they would not be able to resist Langya's condition. After all, they could obtain treasures and resources without doing anything. This was an irresistible temptation for the forces in the underworld where the strong preyed on the weak. Unfortunately, Langya had encountered the players. Although 15% of the Sea King's territory's resources was very tempting, how could the players be satisfied? To the players, the entire Sea King's force belonged to them. Giving them 15% was like dismissing beggars. At this moment, the players only had one thought in their minds. Regardless of whether it was the Sea King's force or the Lord of Langya's, they wanted all the treasures. After all, the players never made a choice. Chapter 297. What do you think? Langya asked expectantly when he saw Gu Yu and the rest remaining silent. All right, then we won't participate in the battle. We'll take these treasures with us and wait for 15% of your resources, Gu Yu said with a smile. Wait! Langya suddenly spoke again. Dear guests, you can't take these treasures with you. But don't worry, we'll give you these treasures and 15% of the Sea King's resources after the battle. The cunning Langya obviously did not trust the players, so he voiced out his thoughts again. What do you mean? Gu Yu frowned. Dear guests, since I've expressed my sincerity, then this is the sincerity you should show me. I'll definitely give you a generous gift. However, it's only a verbal agreement and we can go back on it anytime. So, you can't take these treasures with you for now. Once the battle with the Sea King ends, these treasures and spiritual materials will not be missing. Langya's suggestion stunned the players. They obviously did not expect Langya to do this. Initially, the players planned to trick these treasures into their hands first, but it was obvious that this trick did not work on Langya. Dear guests, don't worry. I, Langya, have a high status in the Kuelong Ocean. I'll never lie to you. Langya added with a smile, as if he saw the dissatisfaction in Gu Yu and the rest. Upon hearing this, the players knew that Langya could not be tricked. It was unrealistic to fall out with him after getting the treasures and spiritual materials. Hence, Gu Yu and the rest gradually smiled as Langya looked at them with anticipation. Since they're not giving, then they'll rob them. Brothers, rob him. Following Lu Chai's roar in the regional voice chat, all the charging cannons that were aimed at the sea monster army fired. Boom! 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 Langya was startled by the players' sudden attack. Dear guests, what's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of this? Robbery! Lu Chai sneered and smashed his right arm down, shattering the table formed by spiritual energy. Gu Yu and the others stood up. Dear guests, if you want the treasures, we can negotiate. Langya said anxiously as he saw this scene. F***CKU. Stop wasting time and stop talking nonsense. I'm telling you now, we are going to rob you. Following Lu Chai's roar, a spectacular scene appeared. Behind them, countless phantom battleship spirits appeared, and the scene was like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy. For a moment, the condensed aura shocked the sea beasts. Esteemed guest, I, Langya, will definitely fulfill my promise. Please believe me. Langya realized the severity of the situation and quickly said, trying to salvage the situation. However, Lu Chai and the others would not discuss anything with him. They were players, not negotiators. Since the conditions could not be met, they would use force. As players, they were so willful and hot-tempered. The battle had begun, and the huge fleet of battleships pushed forward, colliding with the sea beasts on the surface of the sea. This battle was going to come sooner or later. Since he had encountered it, he might as well fight. Seeing the player clan's attitude, Langya suddenly remembered what his subordinate had reported to him. The temperament of the players was hard to fathom. They would fight to the death with a single word of disagreement. Everyone, fight back with me. At this moment, Langya's face was gloomy. However, in the face of an attack, he would not sit still and wait for his death. Immediately, the sea beast army began to fight back. Retreat. Following Lu Chai's words, other than Gu Yu, the rest of the guild members immediately turned back and leaped toward the battleships. Seeing this, Langya waved his right arm forward, and 3 streaks of light from his sharp claws suddenly slashed toward Lu Chai and the others. Since the battle had begun, he would naturally not hold back. Demon God! Gu Yu's eyes turned red, and his body suddenly expanded. Scarlet flames covered the surface of his body. Gu Yu, who had transformed into the demon god, was about to face Langya's attack and create an opportunity for the others to retreat. However, Lu Chai was 1 step ahead of him, and then crossed his right arm. Boom! The huge impact sent Lu Chai flying, but with the absolute defense of his right arm, he did not suffer any damage. Big Gu, let's go! Lu Chai immediately shouted in the live chat channel. Upon hearing this, Gu Yu took a deep look at Langya. The burning wings on his back flapped, and his body floated into the air, heading toward the Myth Realm warship. Where do you think you're going? After knowing that Gu Yu and the others were the leaders of this force, Langya had the idea of capturing them to deter the players' army. Obviously, Langya's strength was not comparable to Gu Yu's. He immediately caught up with Gu Yu, who was flying, but at this moment, Gu Yu suddenly turned around. Demonic God's stare. In the scarlet pupils, a ball of flame was constantly jumping. Langya was caught off guard and was immediately hit. Suddenly, countless murmurs rang in his ears, and the past emerged. Those thoughts that made him sad, angry, depressed, and desperate all rushed into his mind. After all, this was the power of the demonic god. Even Langya could not expel this thought from his mind for a while, and suddenly fell into endless pain. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and his body directly fell from the sky. Upon seeing this, Gu Yu gave him the middle finger, and then turned around and quickly flew toward the Myth Realm warship. When the leaders of the forces behind the sea beast army saw Langya suddenly falling into the water, they were shocked. They immediately floated into the air, and headed toward the place where Langya fell into the water. After all, Langya was now the leader of their alliance army. Naturally, they could not afford to make any mistakes at this stage. When they pulled Langya out of the water, the leaders were dumbfounded. Langya's face was full of sorrow, and tears were flowing out of his eyes. He looked very embarrassed. Big brother, what happened to you? The second island master of Langya Island, Lang Fu, immediately grabbed Langya's shoulder and shook him hard. However, at this moment, Langya was still immersed in sorrow, and there was no sign of him waking up. Even his nose was flowing out of his tears. This scene made the leaders of the forces dumbfounded. Just when they did not know what to do, Langya's body suddenly shook, and he expelled all the evil thoughts from his mind, and woke up. Bastard! Langya, who had recovered from the demonic stare, pushed away Lang Fu, who was still pressing his shoulder, stood up, and looked at the Myth Realm warship from afar. However, at this moment, Gu Yu smiled and waved at him from afar. Then, he stomped his feet, and suddenly, a golden lion appeared above the warship, and let out a deafening roar at him. Gu Yu's demonstration really made Langya furious, and he pointed at the players' army with his trembling body. Since you guys don't know what's good for you, then let's fight. Although he was under great pressure since the players' warship fleet was really huge, Langya could not care less at this moment. Since they had already bullied him, he naturally would not sit still and wait for his death. Next, the first battle between the players' army and the forces of the Kuelong Ocean broke out. Initially, the forces of the Kuelong Ocean were very anxious about this battle. However, after the official battle, they realized that the players' army was completely a paper tiger, and their actual combat power could not compete with them at all. This made them more excited as they fought, and the anxiety in Lang Ya's heart was also because of the pleasure of revenge. However, the players were very calm. They were already used to death, and they did not intend to win this battle. Therefore, the players specifically targeted the sea beasts that had treasures and spiritual materials in their mouths to kill. At this moment, the Kuelong Ocean's Alliance army was fighting to annihilate the players' army, and the players' army was fighting for their own interests. Both sides were very excited. Chapter 298. After a while, Tian Kun suddenly said, "Sea King Boss, all the best. We'll support you this time." He Sui and the others were the most worried because, unlike the Sea King, they couldn't afford to lose this battle. They wholeheartedly agreed with the Sea King's decision this time. They even hoped that the Sea King would take the initiative to ally with the player clan so that they could increase their chances of winning. The battle went on for the 3rd hour. The players' army was completely surrounded by endless sea monsters. Lang Ya proposed to negotiate with the players again. He Sui and the others' eyes lit up. They were not happy about the annihilation of the players' army, but the meaning behind it. Where are their corpses? Lang Ya immediately ordered the forces to retrieve the players' corpses and the warship wreckage. Oh yeah, isn't the player clan under Yu Yao's rule? He just took over Beiki. Why didn't he consolidate his power? Why did he release the player clan? Sha Shui couldn't help but interrupt. It's not normal. It's not normal at all. This Yu Yao is at the Ghost Emperor realm. Sha Shui was in disbelief. Xian Mo Island, Sea King Palace. However, Lang Yu was sure that the players had physical bodies, so why did they disappear? Yu Yao was very humble at that time. He hoped for peace and not war. Although he had no idea what the players' intentions were, their actions made the Sea King a little uneasy. This was because this force of Beiki had never played by the rules. Whether they would become his support in the fight against the Langya Island Coalition army, or become a tumor that would kill the Mute Sea Nation, even the Sea King was not sure. Where are the warship wreckage that was destroyed? However, his expression froze as he felt that something was wrong. The Sea King was puzzled. He opened it and found a line of words and an emoticon written in a crooked manner. From now on, station troops at the border of the Kuelong Ocean and the Void Ocean. We must not let the players join the Sea King Navy. Lang Ya said with a gloomy face as he looked at the sea monsters' corpses floating on the sea. However, the players were already angry and wouldn't give up. They raised their middle fingers at the cunning Lang Ya and the war broke out again. From Lang Ya's point of view, this fleet was obviously not all of the players' forces. There might be more powerful forces behind them. At this moment, the Sea King and the other lords, former kings, in the Sea King Palace were staring at the marked map of the Kuelong Ocean on the table. "Come on. Your Majesty, the players have arrived. I don't know if they are allies or not, but they had a battle with the allied army of Langya Island 3 days ago. In the end, they were completely wiped out. However, this battle also made the players realize how powerful the Kuelong Alliance army was. Obviously, they were not on the same level as them. The hearts of everyone present trembled when they heard this. This was because the collapse of the negotiations with the player forces meant that more of their fleets would arrive. This battle that should have been a sure victory was now a variable. After all, the depth of the player army was still a mystery to them. The Sea King nodded. "That's right. What Yu Yao wants is peace. If he was still His Excellency, he would never allow the player clan to lead their army to the Kuelong Ocean, let alone initiate a war with the Langya Island Coalition army." In the 5th hour of the battle, only a few of the players' million warships were left, while the allied army's sea beasts were endless as if they could never be killed off. The consequence of failure was the destruction of the entire country, becoming history in the river of time. The lords nodded subconsciously when they heard this. After all, Yu Yao was a powerhouse in the Ghost Emperor realm. They had a deep impression of Yu Yao's easygoing attitude back then, but they could not help but sigh when they thought that he was gone just like that. Your Majesty, Langya and the others have realized that we want to use the Death Clan to wear down their strength. They obviously did not hold back in the following battles. Obviously, they intend to take us down in one go. Hei Sui pointed at the previous battle point on the map and said with a worried expression. They were definitely going to lose, but the players were not depressed because the soul coins and experience points were increasing. To the players, this was much more important than any victory. This was the actual benefit. Therefore, the players continued to resist tenaciously and launched a life-and-death battle with the Kuelong Alliance army on the sea. Alright, no matter what the player clan's purpose is, as long as they don't offend us at this stage, we must not take the initiative to become their enemy, the Sea King said after thinking for a while. However, the wreckage of the warship was made of spiritual materials and spiritual minds. How could it disappear? Why did they come? Are they enemies or friends? Hei Sui asked anxiously. In the end, the Alliance army began to retreat after their fruitless investigation. However, they left behind several forces to guard the area as a warning for the players' forces that might come later. Just as everyone was thinking about how to persuade the Sea King to let go of his hatred and join forces with the players, a soldier stationed in the outer palace hurried in and handed a letter to the Sea King. Just as the Sea King and the others were discussing how to arrange the defensive forces, Tian Kun rushed in from outside. Upon hearing this, the other lords fell into deep thought. Do you really think that Yu Yao can stop them? If I'm not mistaken, Yu Yao might be dead. A trace of determination flashed in the Sea King's eyes. At this moment, even Langya was dumbfounded. The entire sea was filled with the corpses of sea beasts. It was extremely unbelievable that there was not even a single wreckage floating on the sea. At this moment, the other lords present nodded in realization. Then, their expressions became a little complicated. However, no matter how much they speculated and pondered, they still couldn't figure out the problem. Although it was rare for corpses to dissipate after death in the underworld, it still existed. After all, the creatures in the underworld were divided into physical bodies, bodies, and incorporeal bodies. When the last player's warship was destroyed, Langya still kept a straight face and didn't look happy at all. The members of the Alliance army who found nothing were also dumbfounded. So what if he's the Ghost Emperor? The player clan isn't as simple as you think. Think about it carefully. What was Yu Yao's attitude when he first came? What did he want? Everything seemed very strange to them. It's obviously unrealistic to rely on the Death Clan to start a war of attrition. In that case, let's accumulate the strength of the Death Clan and counterattack when it reaches a certain scale. For now, we should focus on defense, the Sea King said expressionlessly. Half an hour later, he clearly knew that it would be difficult to win this battle, but at least there was hope. Moreover, he had the Death Clan as his backing. Even if he lost, he could afford to lose because he had a way out. After all, they were at a great disadvantage at the moment. Although they knew that the Sea King and the player clan had an irreconcilable grudge, they still didn't want the Sea King to be impulsive and go against the players. Don't celebrate too early. The player clan isn't a kind people. Moreover, they wouldn't be so stupid as to attack the Langya Island Alliance army without a purpose. The Sea King couldn't help but pour cold water on the crowd. Langya really couldn't understand. He thought that the players were actually creatures with an incorporeal body, but they were actually bodies. This was the only way to explain why they disappeared after death. Most of the creatures that disappeared after death were incorporeal bodies, such as ghosts, and a small number of bodies. Due to the structure of these creatures' bodies being related to the rules of the underworld, their bodies would be decomposed after death and integrated into nature.